we're pretty deep in the tournament at this point, as evidenced by the whole reason why this video is rounds 3 and 4 of the playoffs. Because for the winner's bracket, we're in the semifinals. There are only 4 players left in the winner's bracket. But there are also 8 players left in the loser's bracket. So that means that while the loser's bracket will play round 3 and 4 of the playoffs, it's effectively the same thing for the winner's bracket. So we are starting off with a loser's bracket game, or series, of Johnny G2 versus Byron the Well. So, loser goes home. Deoxys Kyogre, is this going to be a sash? It is going to be a sash on the water spout to ensure that it gets the KO. And Byron's going to get rocks and spikes, so that's pretty much as well as you can start the game for Byron, provided you have a Kyogre answer afterwards, which he does. He has a Palkia, a Whacken, and whether Thunder or Thunder Wave from Kyogre, it's going to respond to Palkia, not with a whimper. It's going to leave something significant in its wake. This is incidentally why I really like Lum Palkia. It can be pretty game-changing in a lot of scenarios. Not just for paralysis, but also toxic. So, Thunder stings it pretty hard, but Kyogre doesn't want to stay in and eat a second Thunder. It's already chunked the Palkia, that's helpful, but it doesn't want to give up Kyogre at the beginning of a game because then he might lose the weather. We don't know enough about his team, but if he has like a Kingdra or Kabutops or something, then he might really want to keep that Weather War option open for himself, as opposed to just completely conceding the game once Byron sends out a Groudon, which is very possible. Or even if not just like a dedicated Rain Abuser, it just might be, hey, my Latios has Thunder and I want to be able to use Thunder, but I can't do that if there's uncontested Sun. So he's going to have to get out of there with from the Palkia. And Thunder pops off on Bronzong, does good damage, but Zong does not. We don't know what set this Palkia is. We don't know if it's Choice or not. It's clearly not Specs, but very well could be Scarf. But it also could unleash a really strong Hydro Pump. Good lord. 41 to Soldew Latios. Palkia is incredible. So, Latios is going to chase out the Palkia. Johnny makes a great move and switches to Bronzong on what he assumed would be a Draco answer, which is usually a Steel type. Or in this case, Tyranitar. But either way, Bronzong sets up rocks on non-Heatran Steel types. Doesn't set up rocks on that T-Tar, though, because even if that's a Banded Crunch, it's not going to KO Zong from that range. So that's really unfortunate. And now in comes Johnny's Garchomp to abuse the Sandveil set up by T-Tar. And it immediately does, so some payback. Problem is that EQ doesn't KO T-Tar from full. Also, the fact that this is a sub-SD Garchomp means that it's extremely likely that Johnny has a T-Tar of his own. It's not very often at all that you see sub-Salic Chomp on a dedicated Kyogre team or Groudon team. So he's going to go for the EQ and doesn't KO the T-Tar, but it is going to it gets KO'd now, but it also, as soon as it takes that EQ, it's not able to switch into Latios anymore, so now we're about to see the slugfest nature of this wonderful tier unleashed. In comes Byron's own Kyogre, which Johnny sacrifices his Kyogre to, or doesn't sacrifice, because Byron goes for Ice Beam to not let Kyogre in for free, and Johnny's got the faster Ogre, so he's going to get a Thunder off and before getting KO'd himself. Now Latios is going to come in and claim the KO, as Byron reveals Lefty, so probably some sort of offensive Calm Mind. I mean, it could be 3 attacks T-Wave, but Calm Mind lets it really pressure both, because it's not just for busting through walls more efficiently, but it also takes away a revenge killing option, because it weakens Thunder so significantly. That was surprising that, I guess, unless you use Thunder there, which is a tougher move to make, then you're not going to KO the Kyogre necessarily. Because what range was it at? It was at yeah, okay, no, it's not going to die to Hydro there. So that ultimately didn't wind up mattering. Yeah, and if he is Hydro, he doesn't want to risk it. So, no, that was the right move from Byron. In comes another switch, and another Draco switch, but he doesn't go for Draco. He goes right for Thunder and clocks that Jirachi for huge damage as it shows it's a Scarf set for sure. It's going to U-turn here, safe move because it KOs Latios or capitalizes on the switch. And now Dialga being the U-turn absorbing, Kyogre being sent into it is a sign that there's no stab fighting or ground move there. Or at least it's very unlikely. I mean, no, there needs to be a Levitator in Byron's last slot because otherwise it just gets completely swept by Scarf Chomp EQ or Groudon or Rock Polish Groudon. And Giratina O is the very obvious choice there because of the spin blocking factor. So yeah, and that means that Palkia doesn't want to tango with Dialga, and Tina O doesn't either. Jirachi, not exactly. So Kyogre is the best choice. Yeah, because it also will reveal what kind of Dialga it is. Because if it goes for... I mean, it's likely Scarf there, because it would be tough to fit. Because we're also assuming that that's a T-Tar last. And if it is a T-Tar last, then you really need all the Lucario help you can get. So yeah, Scarf Dialga. Because it's hard to imagine Rain Team with Salic Chomp, non-Scarf Dialga, and then a Scarfer last. Yeah, that's a team that definitely specializes in taking on offense more. So Byron makes a great move in going to Palkia because it scouts either Thunder or Draco Meteor. Because if Draco Meteor's fine, Kyogre comes in and gets another KO afterwards. And if he Thunders, then he gets to preserve the Palkia sack and goes to Giratina to force it out. So he is operating on the assumption that it is a Scarf Dialga because he doesn't really have much better choice at this point. And he misses Draco on the Latios, but actually winds up being... Well, I was going to say it winds up being better for Johnny for Byron because it means he doesn't -2 as he gets the KO with Shadow Sneak. But it actually prompts Johnny to save his sacrifice of a Latios later. I mean, it might not even be a sacrifice. He might get a KO with it after a KO. Like if Kyogre KOs something, then Latios comes in and KOs something else. So he preserves it and goes to Tyranitar. So likely going to be Choice Band or... That's been really popular this tournament. Choice Band or feasibly something mixed to help break down Skarmory for Garchomp. And yeah, so Tina is going to EQ and crit the T-Tar and down it goes. So that was a series of unfortunate events. Dialga comes in here for another revenge kill. Yeah, I think... I mean, Kyogre is the threat here. But actually, it's a mix of... no, it's not really. Dialga still looks really nasty. It is a T-Wave 3 attacks Kyogre. And it gets paralyzed. And yeah, Byron is going to take that one home. I guess if Latios gets sacrificed, then it was also going to be much easier to win the game with Kyogre. Because as soon as he Salix to get past the Scarf Jirachi, then he gets picked off by Shadow Sneak. So, yeah, and that's what happens. So, yeah, even if the T-Tar did manage to survive, we also don't know the Giratina EVs and the T-Tar EVs, but it's almost certain that T-Tar was going to live that EQ. But even if the T-Tar did KO the Giratina, then that also means that the crit makes up for the Draco miss. Because if T-Tar takes out Giratina after Latios has been KO'd, then Byron's still probably taking that one home. So game 2 with Byron at a 1-0 advantage. Ho-Oh into T-Tar. It used to be that Ho-Oh would not switch out of lead T-Tar because lead T-Tar would never run rock moves. And as a result of the CB T-Tar that has become such a staple lead of DPP Ubers, thanks to this tournament, then now Ho-Oh has the option of switching out. And I'm really happy about this tournament for that reason. So it does in fact Stone Edge into a Groudon, which doesn't waste time with rocks. Kyogre likes to sneak in against Groudon using rocks, but it shows when you have a big strong EQ like that, then you really make Kyogre pay, especially because Groudon gets lefties first, and so Kyogre does not want to stay in. Johnny sees the switch to a flying Pokemon coming and goes to Dialga, which is a great matchup against them, so fantastic move. and he's going to threaten out the Skarm and get up rocks. So perfect early game for Johnny. In comes Ho-Oh into Blissey as rocks go up. Now this Brave Bird recoil is going to be nasty against Blissey if it stays in, but hey, it's worth taking out of Blissey because Ho-Oh is meant to be played very aggressively in the lead slot. So Brave Bird takes out a huge chunk from Lugia. That is definitely banded. Doing 61% to Lugia is absolutely insane. Lugia is not really a Ho-Oh answer, but in rain, you could say, oh, well, it's going to be effectively resistant to Sacred Fire and Brave Bird recoil. You can outstall it, maybe. Maybe without rocks, but with rocks, that becomes a very untenable position because, it did only take 2 effective percent there because it took 58 from that previous Brave Bird, but now it takes 66, so it's not going to be getting outstalled here. And the thing is, Ice Beam is not going to KO. Even a crit Ice Beam wouldn't have KO'd based off that roll because Ho-Oh is just incredibly bulky and Lugia is not very strong. So Ho-Oh is going to take Lugia out and still be alive as a sacrifice. I mean, he could theoretically just Brave Bird and go down swinging against Skarmory, but I don't know if that's worth the reward. I mean, Johnny's going to get 2 Brave Birds off, actually. He can choose to switch out on the Roost. Now, it's questionable. I mean, if he wanted to just KO himself and put pressure on Skarmory, then sure. But without sufficient levels of recoil to KO his own Ho-Oh, then this winds up being more awkward because now Skarmory gets spikes and a Roost. So maybe switching out was better there. I was just going to Brave Bird again, limiting its HP, and Skarmory is going to get a Roost off, but it's effectively like it just switched into Stealth Rock, and got up spikes at that, sorry. So I don't know how worth it that was, as opposed to the sacrifice. Because he goes right to Groudon, Fire Punches away, because Kyogre's at 46 and does not want to switch in. And with T-Tar and Blissey and Lugia down, it's not too likely that Byron is super stacked in terms of Groudon answers at this point. So, solid move. Just going right for it. And if he does have another answer, because I guess you could say, hey, there should be a Lottie Twin to help deal with other Kyogre, because Blissey is not exactly an answer. Or like a bulky Giratina or something, even though I don't see a team being that Spikes weak. With Lugia being fodder for it, and then a bulky Giratina, no, you would need Rapid Spin or Clefable or something. So it's likelier that it's a Lottie Twin, but it's also not super eager to switch into Groudon necessarily because Dragon Claw. And hey, you chunk it with rocks and a Sun-boosted Fire Punch. It could be worse. So instead, Skarm stays in and just gets a Whirlwind off as Mewtwo reveals it has leftovers. Now, Mewtwo can do all sorts of things. Byron's not going to want to sack the Skarm yet. And Johnny just keeps the pressure coming with Calm Mind. If this has Taunt or Sub, and it does have Taunt, then Blissey could be in for a really bad time. Now, Taunt Calm Mind without Aura Sphere doesn't generally do too well against Blissey, because Ice Beam and T-Bolt just kind of bounce off. But with Aura Sphere, then it is going to be a massive threat. So another Taunt is forced, so it doesn't get T-Waved. Byron just goes right for Seismic Toss, not falling for it again. And it does reveal Aura Sphere, which gets a crit and still doesn't KO Blissey. So that was a little fortunate there. Or, maybe a lot fortunate. I say a little because we don't know what the roll would have been otherwise. Or what the roll is, period. We don't know the level of special attack investment that Mewtwo has. But yeah, Taunt Calm Mind Mewtwo is a threat. And the last shows itself to be Giratina O, which makes sense. It helps against Kyogre, and it spin blocks. That's obviously big on a Skarm team. I don't know how... I guess with Specs Kyogre being less popular now, and you having Sand and Blissey and Kyogre and Giratina, then it's manageable. So, alright, I can see it. And it Shadow Sneaks the Mewtwo, and Johnny gets Dialga in, and it looks like he's running away with this one. Just obscene amounts of pressure from every corner. I guess it's not so much about whether the Mewtwo beat Blissey on its own, in and of itself, rather, because it just gets picked off by Giratina afterwards. It's more about it leaving the Blissey in range for Dialga to rampage through everything else. So, Dialga crits T-Tar with a Draco Meteor for a massive chunk, but Yeah, Mewtwo just gets sacrificed here. But if that since it's not even it's a Custap T-Tar. That's very cool. I should have my mental calc fixed because I didn't bother to check the Stone Edge damage on Groudon to say yes, that is banded, or yet no, it's not banded. I guess it's hard to say though because you don't know right away if it's a super bulky Groudon or a more offensive one. But if there weren't so many more games to get through, as soon as it EQ'd the Kyogre, then I would have said, okay, that's an offensive Groudon, so we go back and look at the Stone Edge damage and say, okay, so it's not a banded T-Tar. So, yeah, that'd be busting out the damage calc and everything. But, yeah, Mewtwo is sacrificed. Now, that is a significant crit, but, I don't know, T-Tar's going to get outlasted in terms of dealing with Dialga, which beats everything else, too. So, I don't know if that one was too significant. And Jirachi gets a U-turn KO, Dialga comes in, thunders Kyogre, Giratina. Oh, Giratina crits it, so now it's a game again. But Latios is going to come in, and unless it gets crit with Shadow Sneak or misses its own Draco Meteor or something, then that's going to be the game. So really nice team from Johnny, really nicely done, and this series evens out at 1-1. If you're wondering why that Latios runs Thunder, even though it's on a Sun team, it's because Latios switches into Kyogre, and you got to be able to hit it hard. And Thunder is generally better coverage for things like Bronzong, which are seen on Rain, although Grass Knot is a good alternative. Alright, let's switch the perspective for consistency. And, yeah, Game 3. Deoxys into Dialga. If this is a non-Sash Deoxys, it doesn't love the Dialga switch, or the Dialga matchup, but if it is a Sash Deoxys, and it is, then it likes it because it gets spikes. And Johnny's just going to Draco twice, losing half his PP in the process thanks to pressure. I don't know if that's going to be significant in what's going to be a fast-paced game, but it's good to keep in mind. Latios comes in, gets Ice Beamed, hit for a good chunk, and just goes right for Thunder. Good EVs from Johnny, eating 2 Ice Beams with rocks, and getting frozen. That sucks. Oh, that's awful. I went right for the Thunder to punish the Kyogre staying in, and that's really unfortunate. And his lefties, too. No thaw, and just gets KO'd. Oh, that's awful. That's a game changer. Yeah, well, then comes Dialga again. Yeah, this series has had a lot of hacks. In comes Dialga, Dragon Pulses, Jirachi. Wow, that is definitely a Specs Dialga. I mean, that is the idea of Dialga lead, to be Specs and KO non-Sash Dialgas, or Deoxys. But it's also, it also doesn't need to do that. It can also run like Draco Plate or something. But that Dragon Pulse really smacks that Jirachi, and it just goes right for a flinch because there's no other Dragon Switch in, I assume, on such a fast-paced team, which is natural. There aren't a lot of Dragon Switches in the tier to begin with. Speaking of, in comes Skarmory and gets some spikes, so some pressure is being exerted in return on the second Iron Head. So Jirachi has one more switch in. Kyogre comes in and attacks the Dialga and just Hydro Pumps and just KOs it outright. Kyogre is stupidly strong. Now Johnny's going to respond with Groudon. There's going to be a Giratina or a Lottie, or maybe both on Byron's team. And the Kyogre is faster and Ice Beams and lives the return EQ. So it's clearly it's not a Rock Polish variant or like something more offensive like Paradance. It's going to be a support Groudon, and he can't afford to even set up rocks at this point because he's just struggling so much against the Kyogre. So that freeze, really unfortunate. He's going to try and take on... Wow, I was going to say... He's going to try and take on the Kyogre with Skarm and Sun, because Hydro is weakened and Thunder is bad accuracy, but still a risky proposition. He Roosts, I don't know, maybe you just got to get it out of there and Whirlwind and keep it at as low health as possible. But another Thunder is going to miss, and he Toxics it. All right, that can make something happen. And now he goes to Heatran. All right, so now Heatran is the Kyogre answer. And you like seeing that. I mean, the Thunder hits it really hard, but Heatran is well known to counter everything. And in comes T-Tar on a Lava Plume. Johnny that's a great move. And he is rewarded with a burn for his efforts, because it's so easy to play it super safe in situations like that and just go with Protect. I want to rack up the damage. And that makes it really easy to play around. And Johnny knows that, and he's aware of that. And he makes the play, and so that was a really great one. So glad to see it. He protects now for the health and the chip and the scouting, and that T-Tar goes for a Stone Edge, and clearly banded, doing 34 to scar him when burned. I guess he wants to preserve that as much as he can. In comes Jirachi. This feels like it's going to try and pull some healing wish stuff to Kyogre, and it does, as Scarm roosts and rids it of the toxic, and Johnny whirlwinds it right away. Good move to not let it just come in for free. I guess you could argue he could have toxiced it again, just to, because the Jirachi's not going to. If Jirachi's switching into Scarm like that, yeah, it can trick, but what's more threatening, trick or healing wish? But he's just so far behind at this point. Giratina is whirlwinded in and thunders and full para, which is really unfortunate. And he thunders and just gets a crit to rub it in. So now in comes Lugia, that last bastion of a comeback. And what tends to happen is Lugia eats a lot of thunders while setting up, and that happens because that 30% paralysis rate is nasty. Now the T-Tar being burned is huge because it goes from slamming Lugia multiple times to having 2 turns to do something, and that crunch doesn't even do half. And Johnny makes the right move and goes for the second Calm Mind as opposed to just spamming Roost, because he's going to need as much help on the special defensive front as possible if he's going to take on that Kyogre, which he's hoping has Thunder Wave instead of Calm Mind, because if it's Calm Mind, then he's toast. Oh no. Oh. Garchomp comes in against a paralyzed Lugia in sand, and you can already see where this is going, as Sand Veil is active, and Johnny roosts as Chomp subs and SDs. Yeah, so now this is just going to be Fish City. So clearly it is going to be a T-Wave Kyogre, as that helps spread the love with paralysis for the benefit of exactly what you're seeing here. And yeah, so Lugia is a trooper. It hasn't been parried once, but it just takes one, or a Sand Veil miss. And yeah, so that's an ugly, ugly finish. I mean, the odds were against him at that point, of course, but the odds were against him right from the beginning with the whole Kyogre and the Latias fiasco. So that's an awful way to end the tournament for Johnny, as Byron stays alive in the loser's bracket. Oh, but it's not over yet. No, never mind, it is, sorry. Now, because, yeah, the Garchomp gets confused thanks to the 3-turn Outrage and then Protect with Heatran and KOs itself from behind a sub, which is funny. But Kyogre is still going to win. I mean, Giratina is going to win, too. So, yeah, that's that game. So, Byron, great team and played really well, but it's unfortunate how it goes. Alex Wallace versus Hylord in the loser's bracket. Darkrai into Fori. Fori tends to run a Lumberry. This one's not Lum, it's Akaberry. But Darkrai doesn't love Dark Voiding Fori all the time, and sometimes likes to do other things like Taunt. And in Alex Wallace's case, it tricks to the Scarf. So now the Dark Void seems free? I don't know. I don't like Dark Voiding. Well, I don't know. It depends on your team and how you want to play it, I guess. So I won't go into a whole thing about that, because there's not enough information to make that judgment. But Hylord tries to absorb. Oh, and it gets his Scarf back. That's yeah, so he absorbs the Dark Void with what's almost surely a specially defensive Giratina. He's running some stall, and specially defensive Giratina is a decent Specs Kyogre answer. And it can absorb Dark Void from Darkrai, because it's not going to be ruined by a single Dark Pulse, because it's so bulky. And he goes back to Fori to get some more hazards, and Alex tries to trick the Akaberry, the Akaberry that he received from Fortress, onto something else, but he winds up tricking it back onto Fori, getting his Scarf back, and now the Fori is free to spike. It's going to run from that Heatran, but the pressure's already on, and Heatran taunts there. I'm not sure what it was taunting. Not Fori, clearly, but like a switch-in, like Blissey or whatever. But it prevents Giratina from sleep talking, and the Sunstall team started running EQ Giratina, because otherwise they get completely ruined by Taunt Heatran. And I have a feeling that we're going to be seeing that Taunt Heatran as the anti-Sunstall method be thwarted by EQ Giratina. Obviously, Giratina is still not ironclad. They can still be messed with. Like, if it eats a burn on the switch, then, good night. As long as the Heatran user is patient. But, with the hazard pressure Hylord's exerting, because, Alex gets rocks, but now Hylord gets rocks, and Groudon's already poisoned. In comes Tina O. And on the Cresselia, so... Crest is still favored against non-Phantom... Or not Phantom Force. Fairy Gen moment. Oh, good lord, I would never have made that mistake back in the day. Against non-Shadow Force... Or like Will-O-Wisp or something, Giratina O, then Crest is going to beat it one-on-one. Because Shadow Sneak is not strong enough Ghost Stab. But Shadow Force completely turns the tables. But obviously gets switched out against. And yeah, Hylord's Groudon is still at half. So Crest is not really scared. I mean, it's fine because he can go to Heatran and just eat that Ice Beam for a fat 3%. And now Lava Plume spam. But here's Giratina, which, having absorbed the sleep, is even more safe against it. Now we see Fire Blast there, which is unusual, because Lava Plume is usually the staple move on Heatran. And fails the Sleep Talk there, as, it's even a slow Heatran, because the Giratina got leftovers first, so it's some sort of stall. Well, okay, it still is a slow Heatran, because the Giratina got leftovers first, but the Heatran also used Roar on that turn, so. And it roars in Fortress, so Stall Breaker Tran, and usually you see Lava Plume, because you like burning Kyogres that try to reset the weather on you. But here it's just going to be... And, Lava Plume burn here. I mean, Giratina being faster. I mean, that's just a matter of running a faster Heatran to compensate for that. But it's Giratina switches in on the next Fire Blast and rests. And the hazards are doing their work. Fori's going to come in on this Poison Darkrai because it's expendable. It's got hazards up. It doesn't really need to spin. And it's just about putting as much... Yeah, see, why even bother spinning? Just... Yeah, the second layer of spikes isn't super amazing. I still have to make that video on why it's not. But it's better than just spinning and doing nothing, Even more pressure being exerted on this Heatran. Because the Heatran so far is the only thing that poses any sort of threat at all. And the more you wear it down, the better, obviously. So, Tina comes in, gets roared. Would be more threatening with some hazards of Alex's own. Latias comes in, also not going to want to take it on. See, if this... matchup could very well be flipped as he keeps roaring, catches Blissey, which was expected, it being Sunstall and all. But imagine if this had Lava Plume and some speed, and this matchup is completely different. Even if the Giratina is EQ. Some speedy Lava Plume Heatran here with some spikes, as is generally the standard for stall breaking Tran. It would be nightmarish. I mean, even Latias would be more terrified of it. Of course, we don't know the last move yet, but it generally helps. So, Groudon is going to chase it out, and even Groudon getting chased out, it actually winds up getting lefties as a result of that little interaction, as opposed to getting chunked. And Alex sacks Groudon and revenges with Fori, which is, just also dying. I mean, Dark Voids, because Sleep Clause is no longer active, because Giratina woke up and rested, but Fori is being sacked here. Or no, it's not even being sacked. He goes to Crest, which is a great move because it avoids Blissey risking like a Focus Blast crit or something. And if it's one Dark Pulse, it would be very difficult for Alex to use Dark Pulse there. So that was a really nice heads-up play. And he goes for Thunder Wave, and that's a nice addition on Crest there. Because usually on stall you don't need that kind of thing, but T-Wave can ruin the speed on something like a Taunt Heatran specifically, and that lets your Rest Hog Giratina handle it much more easily. So, really nice addition there. Now, Calm Mind Latias isn't going to break through Blissey without Refresh or something. That would be a threat, but it doesn't have it. So now, roaring the Giratina more, but it's just, how many times you're going to roar and actually make something happen. I mean, even Spikes would go a long way, but Hylord does have those two big Spikes immunities in Crest and Latias. But of course, Heatran messes with them. That's why it's such a great Spikes abuser. So this Blissey soft wields, Crest is going to destroy Giratina, and it's just a matter of flailing with Heatran until something gives, which is much likely going to be Alex's team. Because he roars the Blissey, and I mean, it's not often that you see Roar ever threaten to run out of PP, as there's a Sleep Talk EQ, and down goes Heatran. But yeah, if you keep roaring Giratina, then pressure is going to work on it. So, yeah, now Blissy's going to stifle the Latios with Toxic and +2 Soldew Dragon Balls. Actually does a respectable chunk, but without Refresh, which is very rare, and is pretty much only good against Stall. I mean, Refresh Lottie is good, but generally better as an all-out attacking thing. So you can switch into T-Wave Kyogre better, a la Gen 3 Ubers. Well, there it's also good for Groudon. Frostlass into Fori in Game 2, and comes Dialga on a taunt. No, Alex just goes right for Spikes. Nice move. He's going to taunt, and the Dialga is Scarfed, so he doesn't get the second layer. He's going to go to Groudon after and get up some rocks, and Fori is not going to come into Groudon for fear of fire move, so he's going to get rocks and spikes unthreatened by spin right off the bat. And he goes for T-Wave. I don't know if rocks are too big there, and he's not going to get up rocks here either. He's going to go to Frostlass to get in one layer of spikes before it dies, or I guess Destiny Bond. No, he just goes on for the second spike, so, and then he Ice Shard chunks the... Yeah, I mean, I guess if the Groudon doesn't have rocks, but I don't know what else would have rocks here. So, Crest comes in, we're seeing another variant of Sunstall, and he just EQs right away for fear of getting KO'd by the Dialga staying in on the free rocks. T-Wave's the Crest, that can be helpful, but now the rocks finally go up. But I felt like it could have been a lot more efficient. So, in comes Dialga to threaten the Crest somehow, and gets T-Waved on the switch. Good move by High Lord, knowing Groudon isn't going to threaten it. Now, Specs Dialga is a big threat, but that's not what that is. And Blissey takes it on decently, and now it's just Bliss Crest going to sit on the Groudon some more. I was going to say the only way that Dialga is really threatening Crest is with either Specs or like some subsets, and neither of them are very threatening if they get paralyzed on the switch. So Moonlight, his Fire Punch does 17. And Dialga is going to switch again, hoping to force Crest out, but now that High Lord has seen that it's not like Specs or something, he's not forced out. And now Lugia comes in, and Lugia is just going to flail haplessly against a Stall team, and it subs, and it's going to have to switch out against four, and now the game's over. I guess he was hoping that High Lord would expect there to be a Giratina and to not go for spin there, so he could then get some sub Whirlwind stuff going. I mean, yeah, sub Whirlwind Lugia is a pretty cool set, but I don't know, because the reason why High Lord spun there is, first of all, he's already, having no problem walling Alex's team. He's under no pressure. If he especially because if he spins in a Giratina, then that Lugia just subbed and lost even more of its health for nothing, and later it's going to come back in and deal with more rocks that it hasn't healed from. It'll be at under half, and then it's going to give Fori another free switch, and then he'll spike next time. Who cares? He's not going to be, left wanting for opportunity. He's going to just set up all over this thing. And, yeah, and he's not threatened by Giratina coming in at all, even with rocks and 2 layers of spikes because of Cress. So, offensive teams really have to take Sunstall into account. It's very potent style. And anyways, he's just Ice Beaming this Fortress and giving it max hazards. And it rests, so he doesn't even beat it down. So that's the cool thing about Lum or Chesto Foray, is that you can feasibly run rest. But yeah, this is just going to be literally max hazards, and now switching around the Blissey. And now Rayquaza comes in as Blissey doubles to Giratina, just so he doesn't waste PP attacking the pressure Lugia. He Swords Dances, hoping to catch the Ray on a switch, but High Lord knows that the only way he is going to lose this game is if he gives Rayquaza free turns, and Rayquaza is not going to KO Giratina on one turn, almost surely. I mean, it can take Life Orb Draco, but Giratina's crazy. So he just roars and catches an SD, which is, of course, a desperation move. And drags in Groudon, which is getting absolutely ravaged by all the hazards, and T-Wave, EQ, doesn't matter. Fire Punch, no burn on the Groudon, I don't think. Nope. Dialga goes down, Lugia is completely hapless, as Blissey even shows Aromatherapy to cure the Giratina of its paralysis. And yeah, so even crit freezing actually no, he can't freeze, it's Sunny. But yeah, he's really fighting an impossible battle here as Dragon Claw with Life Orb does nothing. Crest just completely sits on this Rayquaza. Even Outrage wouldn't have beaten it, but, you know. So doesn't get a Dragon Claw crit. I mean, there's still a Scarf Dialga, which is a perfect SD Ray check. So now, if this is a Calm Mind Refresh Latias, it is a Calm Mind Refresh Latias. Now it gets interesting. Okay, that is the one Pokemon stall-breaking machine that... I mean, if the Dialga has Outrage, then it might not be enough. Because Scarf Dialga does run Outrage, and even Palkia sometimes, specifically for Calm Mind boosted Latias, which will shrug off Dragon Pulses and Draco Meteors after a few boosts, because it's so bulky with Soldew and Calm Mind. But yeah, he doesn't have enough. Groudon was too healthy, so it took the +2 Soldew Dragon Claw. This isn't advanced. Dragon Pulse and Dragon Clawed it back, and now it's going to be in range for Dialga. So it almost, if the Groudon had been chipped more, then it could have pulled off the impossible comeback. But now Draco Meteor still takes it out, and that's going to be the game. So, I mean, good choice of Latias on that team, but it was just too little, too late once Fori got the spin-off. So, next series, Sky Solo, a.k.a. The Strap, against Jirachi. These are all losers brackets, by the way. So, that High Lord stays alive in the losers bracket. Darkrai switches out of Ho-Oh into Dialga. Dialga is a great Pokemon, but not a great Ho-Oh answer, and that Sacred Fire is banded, doesn't get a burn, but rips off over half of Dialga's health, and that burn helps out as Dialga protects, not just for extra lefties to get out of range of that second Sacred Fire, but also it's with pressure, it is now down to 2 Sacred Fires. So he prevented Kyogre from switching into a Banded Brave Bird, which is significant. Still no burns. This Banded Sacred Fire does 18 in range, which is funny. So he's down to 3 Sacred Fires. You know, he's got 2 more against the Dialga. And his own Dialga is going to come in on the Kyogre here and take a decent chunk from Surf. And now in comes Fori on the Rainy Dialga. This is going to invite Ho-Oh. Oh, no, it's going to invite Groudon in again. And T-Spikes go down. So Groudon's in before the T-Spikes. And the ground resist reveals itself to be Latios. Now, Lava Plume gets a burn before 2 Sacred Fires, which is amusing. Just goes right for a Draco Bomb, smacks the Groudon, and is taken out in return, but that is a big one for the Weather War, as now Kyogre's going to set the rain up and double into Fori on the Dialga switch. So Fori can spin on... Oh, it gets... of course it gets Fire Blasted. It's... Dialga on a Sun team. That shouldn't be that surprising. But he gets some spikes up. So, and no rocks yet, as he even goes for the rapid spin on the Dragon Pulse, trying to hit. So that's actually a fairly significant spin, because that either removes pressure from the switch, because it's minus, it's 12.5 less than it would have been with rocks up, or it forces Dialga to set the rocks up again on the switch. But Jirachi's just going to commit to keeping rocks off, and lets Fori go down. Now in comes Groudon, and doubles, so it's not about winning the Rain Weather War so much as going to just weakening Sky Solo's own Groudon for the purposes of his own. I thought he was going to go to Darkrai and Dark Void to shut down the possibility of rocks again, but he thought the Groudon would run away from, or the Dialga would run away from the Groudon, but he doesn't, and now he's in trying to paralyze it with Dialga. Gets the full para at least, but in comes his own Dialga now to finally get up his own rocks in rain, rather than let Ho-Oh in for free. Oh, he was afraid Ho-Oh would come in on the Groudon there, so rocks finally go up, and so a lot of hazards, but Ho-Oh is free to spam CBEQ. It's not super threatening to Groudon, but it's also not something that's really going to want to switch into. So stays in, roars, and Ho-Oh's still going to be a threat later, because Ho-Oh is just amazing. But it roars in Dialga, protects, PP stalling Dragon Pulse efficiently thanks to between this thing's pressure and Fortress. And rather than risk Dragon Pulse damage on his more valuable Pokemon that can give him the chance of a comeback, it's not like it's early in the game. He's got to really prioritize the health of his more valuable pokes. So he just decides to chunk the Dialga some more, put it into EQ range, and then sending Groudon get up a Rock Polish. It Dragon Claws, and even with Life Orb, doesn't take out Ho-Oh from half, and is going to get smacked by Brave Bird in return. So it's going to get picked off by priority, or just have 2 Life Orb hits and die. But he's not going to do that. He's going to go to Darkrai, not giving it up just yet. And Darkrai is going to double switch into Groudon again, rather than just get... So that's a great move, because now, rather than Darkrai getting... I mean, it's still an uphill battle at this point, because Sky Solo's got 2 very healthy, unrevealed Pokemon. But it gives Groudon a chance to get another KO, and then have Darkrai come in and shut something down with Dark Void. I mean, the Dark Void thing, if it's a Scarf Darkrai, which is very likely because it's in the lead slot and nothing else is Scarfed on this team, then the Paralyzed Dialga actually gets in the way of that. But, yeah, with Latios showing up now, then this is definitely going to be Game 1 going to the Strap. So, Grass Knot, and now Darkrai is going to try and flinch everything in existence. And it gets 1. And Sky Solo, or the Strap, reveals Garchomp and does not get flinched and outrages. So that is Game 1. I like these types of Sun offenses. They're very, very good. Jirachi versus Sky Solo Game 2. Deoxys into Mew. Spikes right away, so that could signify either a Scarf set, or, I mean, a Scarf set is more likely to use Trick there. But if you're afraid of Mew U-turning into Giratina O and threatening you to not have hazards at the beginning of the game, you can just go right for Spikes. Or it could just be a Deoxys lead that doesn't bother with what's it called? With rocks. So you can just chuck them on your Groudon or your Dialga or whatever. So in comes Infernape, which is definitely going to U-turn again. Band is the go-to Infernape set because it's got a great speed tier for Ubers. Just picture this. Garchomp is already considered amazing for its speed tier. So Infernape, just rockets past it. But so Band is common, but Scarf is possible. So E speeds and chunks the Infernape a little bit. This feels like a Diamond and Pearl matchup, like OU, I mean, and just U-turns again. He could have gone to Infernape just because of the U-turn conundrum that it puts Jirachi in, i.e., if I switch, then I get U-turned on, and if I stay in, I get KO'd. Could also have been, if it's a Scarf Ape, then you learn whether the Deoxys is Scarf or not. Because Scarf Infernape is fast enough to outrun Deoxys speed. It's one of the few Pokemon that are capable of doing that. So, and if it is a Scarf Ape, then you find out if it's Scarf or not. And either way, we know it's not Scarf because it switches move and E-speeds the ape. Which I assume that Jirachi did because second layer Spikes isn't that valuable and he'd rather wear down Ape, which is quite threatening. It's going to be at less than half when it comes back in now. So that limits its ability to spam Flare Blitz and Sun, as there's almost certainly a Groudon supporting it now. Yeah, so, and this would, I mean, you could also argue that going for the second layer of Spikes is good because it reveals whether it's Band or Scarf, but Jirachi knows his team better than we do. So in comes Latios to threaten out the Mew, which is bulky, but lead Mew is not going to be take Soldu, Latios, Draco Meteor after a layer of Spikes bulky. Now it comes Wobbuffet and dodges a Draco, and gets T-Waved. Alright, so that's interesting. That was going to help it whether or not it landed that Draco. So if it was 4 attacks Latios, then, well, I mean, actually the scenario where it most matters is where you call Mind after missing, so you guarantee that if the Wobbuffet Mirror Coats, then you're going to beat it. But then you risk the Encore conundrum, so. T-Wave helps here as he does Encore, so that Wobbuffet winds up being paralyzed, but not really affected by it otherwise. So in fact, I would say that really helps. That definitely helps the Strap more than it hurts, because yeah, if you get actually eating Draco Meteor like that, I think he would have traded Wob for Latios, but now he's better because he gets to keep Wobbuffet alive, and by forcing it in an Encore, then he now gets to do this, which is Mew is the standard for Darkrai leads, and Jirachi has no choice but to T-Wave into the Mew there, which synchronizes the T-Wave back onto Latios, and is free of the move itself thanks to its Lumberry. So now it's going to get up rocks. Now Jirachi can stay in and go for T-Wave again, but he just goes right to Darkrai and is going to start evening out the score with this thing. Because, you know, Wobbuffet, yeah, it's paralyzed, but it's not going to want to switch in. So, yeah, that was a confluence of unfortunate circumstances with the Draco missing into the T-Wave backfiring. So Infernape gets sacrificed here with Dark Void, Spikes, and Bad Dreams doing a chunk. So it's going to get one more switch in after this. And this is what makes Infernape switching in like that. It's like, is this going to be Sleep Talk Choice Scarf? Seems quite likely, and Jirachi is wary of that and doesn't want to risk it, and switches to Latios. And it does Sleep Talk, and it does Close Combat, and it doesn't do banded damage. So it is Scarf. So good call. And thanks to the way choice mechanics work in Gen 4, if you are choice and you use Sleep Talk, you can't use Sleep Talk again. So you can't. There's no way that the strap can, Sleep Talk here and hope to roll a U-turn or something. So Latios gets a free hit here, and Draco Meteors, and this time it hits through paralysis and takes Mew out. So in comes Dialga afterwards, a perfect way to capitalize on it, and in comes Jirachi. Eating a crit Dragon Pulse for very little damage, showing that it's bulky with leftovers, and getting up rocks as it eats a T-Wave. So it's a good support Jirachi there. And T-Wave, Earth Power, Dialga showing its endless versatility, and dodging a para in return. Jirachi looks at like it's barely out. It was out of range of the previous Earth Power roll, but this time it gets crit, and Dialga's at full health. But that's a big one. I was going to say there are very few Pokemon that can KO healthy Dialga like this, and Life Orb Lucario is one of them, and it goes for the close combat and just takes it out. Knowing Jirachi, that probably is a plus speed Lucario, and so even if that is a offensive Dialga, then at worst it's a speed tie. So the Dialga goes down, and comes Latios to HP Fire it, and it potentially being a speed tie against Jirachi's own Latios is relevant because it's paralyzed, as he just takes it out with Draco. And in comes Darkrai once again to sub. What's it subbing to? Like some sort of Pinch Berry? Oh no, it's got leftovers. Okay. I think I overlooked that earlier. Surely I did. Oh no, it switched in as Mew got rocks up, so it wouldn't have shown it. Okay, never mind. Yeah, so it subs, gets lefties, and now is definitely out of Latios range because of the weakened special attack stat, but it gets a flinch anyway, so it stays healthy. So Infernape gets one more switch in with hazards, and it can Sleep Talk. It can try and go for a Wake Up. I think it's more favored to Sleep Talk though, because it's only slept one turn. So the question is, how does Jirachi want to handle the free turn he's going to get after Infernape Sleep Talks? Because he could potentially just sacrifice Darkrai, and then, because if Darkrai gets KO'd, then Bad Dreams does not activate, and then Lucario SDs for free. So I have a feeling that might be what happens. And he subs. Good move. That's a good move from both players, because Sky Solo does not want to Sleep Talk into the Lucario and give it free setup, because it's pretty likely it's going to win at that point. But that's also compensated for by Jirachi not just going for the KO, but forcing the issue with sub. And I guess that's a tough move to make. Yeah, and it shows that he didn't have many better options, because if the Infernape doesn't Sleep Talk there, he pretty much had to hope that he woke up and CC'd, is what I'm saying, so he could prevent the Lucario from SDing for free. But he's not too favored to do that, and Jirachi gets a sub up as Bad Dreams goes down, activates and takes Infernape down, and now Darkrai's behind a sub against Wobbuffet and an unrevealed Pokemon, and no Sleep Claws active. So Wobbuffet can't even Mirror Coat this thing because Darkrai is immune to it because Mirror Coat is a psychic move. So all he can do is Encore into it. And he actually, no, he Custab D-Bonds. Never mind, I take it back. That's pretty big. And he doesn't get parried either time. And, yeah, that's... So Wobbuffet does take down Darkrai. It's rare that it happens, but it does work out really nicely there. So it's just a matter of Lucario and Jirachi's unrevealed versus Sky Solo's unrevealed. Which could be a lot of things. Because it's an unusual structure with Scarf and Fernape and Wob, and no weather support. So, in comes Dialga, and there... Well, oh, wait, this is what happens when you try to narrate, like, 16 battles at the same time. Of course it was Groudon. We said it, like, right at the beginning of the game. Yeah, that's an Infernape. It's going to be paired with Groudon. So, Jirachi goes to Dialga, and that will... I don't think the order really matters, but Groudon is less able to... Yeah, Groudon can set up Rock Polish on Lucario, theoretically. It's still unlikely, especially with Rocks and Spikes. But it's not going to be able to as easily on a Draco Meteoring Dialga, and it KOs it cleanly, and we're going to Game 3. Thrilling stuff. Jirachi lead versus Darkrai lead. Or, sorry, Rayquaza lead is against Darkrai lead. Switches Garchomp in, trying to absorb a Dark Void, but it takes a Dark Pulse, and it takes 2, and that's banned Outrage again. So this is the team that Jirachi used against M-Dragon, I believe. Or it's very likely anyway, as there's Outrage, and that Jirachi is not Scarf, so it takes a ton from the second banned Outrage. And it's a 3-turner, so... oh, and it gets a crit. Oof, that's brutal. So Darkrai and Jirachi are taken out. I mean, bringing Jirachi down to low health, like the Garchomp was going to do, was already going to be significant because it's a team of Dragon Spam, but that definitely helped out. So now in comes Kyogre and reveals its Scarf, locking itself into Ice Beam to Revenge Kill it, and that gives Bronzong free rocks. So now it comes Palkia. Is it going to sub on a Boom? Oh, he's going to go right to Rayquaza, hoping to catch a Surf, which is still going to do a lot, even with Airlock removing Rain. But he's just going to E-speed it and chunk it, so now it's going to be a lot easier for various offensive attacks to KO. Because a lot of Uber's Pokemon, the offensive ones, I mean, not against something like Latios. Actually, no, in the case that it is a Haban Palkia, then now, at full health, there are a lot of attacks that the bulky Uber Pokemon can take, Dialga being, a great example, or Giratina Origin. But once just a little bit of chip damage goes off, then those thresholds are crossed. And here's a perfect example, Haban Palkia into Latios, but it just Dragon Pulses. I'm not going to bother trying to use my mental calc, because it's all, screwed up and based in Advanced OU, which is a very different power level right now. So based on how much damage that Surf did to Rayquaza, I was thinking, maybe it's Specs? Maybe it's just like a minus special defense Rayquaza, which is, quite standard. But maybe that Surf did a little too much, so he knew that it wouldn't be Haben. Because I can't imagine that this Latios doesn't have Draco Meteor. He went for the Dragon Pulse because he knew that it was Specs, as opposed to because he knew that it was... because he just assumed it wouldn't be Haben. I think that's more likely. So now in comes Giratina, which does not threaten to KO, even with the max attack Shadow Sneak. And does not... Yeah, so he tried to bait the Draco Meteor. So yeah, that was a knowing Dragon Pulse, as opposed to, I bet it's not Haben thing. Or not, I know it's not Haben, as opposed to, I bet it's Haben. Or I bet it's not Haben. So, Giratina baits the Draco from Latios so that it can... So it'll be more tempted to stay in against Kyogre, maybe? I'm not sure. Well, I guess if you go right to Kyogre, then Jirachi is more likely to switch out. I don't know. Maybe... or maybe he thought, oh no, I think it's also possible that, because Skylar Solo is clearly, devastated by Latios at this point. As soon as Garchomp took that second outrage from, as soon as Jirachi took that second outrage from Garchomp, that was going to be the case. So it was more, I don't want to, maybe maybe he thought he could make Jirachi think that the Giratina lives Dragon Pulse if it's a non-Draco Meteor set. And or that he doesn't want to risk getting Shadow Sneak crit, and that Rain Bronzong is a good answer to Giratina anyway, so why not just play it safe? And on that play it safe move, he would go to Kyogre. So I think it's that, as opposed to luring the Draco Meteor so Kyogre could switch into it, as opposed to just going right to it. I mean, I guess it guarantees that you get the... No, I don't know. I'm going to go with that other explanation. So it Ice Beams and gets taken out, and now it's in range of Giratina's Shadow Sneak, but the Kyogre has been removed, and Bronzong is still around to check the Bronzong. Bronzong is still around to check the Giratina, so it's still very much a positive trade for Jirachi. So Giratina might beat this Bronzong one-on-one. Actually, it doesn't look too great, even with the minimal damage Payback is doing. But even if it does, then Giratina is going to be taken out, and then it's 2 unrevealeds for Jirachi versus 1 unrevealeds for, and you know what, like a 12% Giratina for the strap. So if it's Rayquaza, it can SD on a paralysis or something, or a DD on a paralysis. No, I mean Jirachi's still got speed options, I assume, but no paralysis. It booms, and Jirachi is going to advance in the losers bracket. So that was a thrilling series. So Stone Cold versus Pogies. Kyogre leads. Blissey into Thunder. So we're going to see some bulk here. And yeah, now Dialga comes in on the rocks. Going to see some own rocks from... Nope, Fori's coming in. Own rocks. Darkrai. This is the kind of thing where, once those T-Spikes go down, you better have an option for dealing with them. As Fori does not run from the Dark Void and just stays in and gets the spin-off. Now, the Darkrai does have a sub and a Nasty Plot up, and it hasn't even used Dark Void yet, and it misses the Dark Void on the Dialga and gets roared. That sucks. Yeah, with the Bad Dreams in effect, that could have potentially gotten really nasty, so that's unfortunate for Stone. Now the Deoxys stays in because it can take a superpower from Deoxys attack, and it Dragon Claws. But yeah, obviously there's a lot of RNG there because it depends on sleep turns and such too. But that was potentially big. So in comes Blissey and Rocks, but it's looking like with the T-Spikes, then the advantage goes to Pogies, especially because you got offensive bent to this team with a Latios on the stall core. There's a Lum Darkrai, which gives it another potential round of terror, so that makes the miss even, because at least with T-Spikes you think, once you chase it out then it gets T-Spiked and then it's good, but with Lum that completely changes the dynamic. But now it's probably going to be a case of too little too late, as Latios stays in, forces the Dark Void, as it can take a hit thanks to Soldew, and now Blissey comes in, now it's in Seismic Toss range, and Mono Dark Pulse. Previously, because it was behind the sub and everything, then it could have Nasty Plotted again and things would have gotten interesting, but now it's just going to be taken out. No sub, only +2. Yeah, Jirachi comes in, not good. It's going to trick, but now it's going to give up a spin, and rocks are so big, and in being able to pressure defensive cores. Now Palkia comes in, but it's poisoned, and he's going to crit Thunder, but too little too late. And in comes Blissey, and Focus Titans and go. Oh, that's so cool. I love that. That's great. I love Focus Punch Palkia. It's rare you see it. Let's just watch that again. Oh, that was beautiful. Let's watch it from the other perspective, too. Oh, that's satisfying. That's great. Yeah, so that definitely does help against stallish teams, but that's why it's also good to have an offensive Pokemon like Scarf Dialga is the most common one, but like Latios here, too. The Aromatherapy does go off, though, and that wakes up Latios. Aromatherapy Blissey we've also seen not just for helping your team rest, but also for helping assuage the assault from Darkrai. So now in comes Jirachi, and that's going to not get a freeze, and it's going to take a ton from Rain Surf, which is a surprisingly rare move on Rain Latios. But, I mean, it's because Thunder is so good generally, but hey, the pressure on T-Tar and Heatran is good. And the harder hit on Jirachi, of course, and Bronzong. So this Thunder is going to hit the Lum Kyogre hard. So the tools were potentially there. I think this game definitely had the potential to go a different way, but you can't necessarily say for certain because we don't even know the last. It's very likely going to be Giratina O, but yeah. Game 2. DOA into Ray. Gets E-speeded right away. down to the sash, gets Ice Beam down to its sash. Now Ray is the wow. This is just like Destiny Deoxys, the movie. How cool. Anyway, so Deoxys' attack has the faster E speed, so Ray can switch out and then go to something else like a Tina O or a Scizor or whatever else that will finish it off with priority. If he's got a T-Tar, that would be ideal. And so, of course, he can also try and E-speed again if Deoxys tries to spike on the switch. Lots to, if you stay in with Rayquaza, you guarantee that the Deoxys won't get up a spike. But a Kyogre comes in instead, and E-speeds again, and he reveals that the Kyogre is in fact Scarf, so no hazards. Hey, the Deoxys might not even have spikes, so that might not even enter into the equation. So he Ice Beamed, I assume, to hit a Giratina O, trying to dodge the what's it called? The E-Speed. That would have been a big smack on it. And now he goes for T-Wave to either ruin the Kyogre staying in or catch the Ray coming in. Either's good, and he finishes the Ray off with D-Claw, staying healthy, not even taking an E-Speed. So now Kyogre comes in again. What's the answer going to be? Pogies doubles on that, because it's often a Lottie Twin, to Darkrai, trying to take advantage of it. He goes to Dialga instead. Could be Scarf with Sleep Talk, and he goes to Garchomp instead. So that is, whether Scarf or Band, one Scarf being a lot more likely. He Sleep Talk Earthquakes, Darkrai gets out of there, and in comes Groudon, probably going to get up some rocks. Spikes go up, just T-Waves the Scarm, which is going to stand and get up another layer of spikes. Is it going to go for 3? Force Stone to reveal whether he has Lava Plume or not. And I guess he doesn't, because he stays in Whirlwinds, and Darkrai and Dialga both take heavy spikes damage. And it can't even sleep the Scarm anymore because it's paralyzed. He just goes right for Nasty Plot, though. But Scarf Kyogre comes in because that is a good Darkrai answer if it doesn't, temporarily anyway, if it's got Sleep Talk and avoids Thunder, which is rare. So he goes right to Groudon to absorb the Hydro Pump, and he's got to get out of there and go back to Dialga. But Dialga and Sun, it's got lefties, so it can, if it's got Fire Blast, it's going to threaten Scarm, obviously. It chunks Pogies' Dialga quite hard as well. Let me make sure my music is, no, my music's still playing, it's just quiet. And this is the classic patented Stone Dialga. This ran the set to great effect quite a bit. And T-Waves, Dragon Pulses, just beating Pogies' Dialga down, and now Stone's own Dialga is, he's got to watch out for that Scarf Kyogre cleaning him up, because it's in range now, especially because it gets KO'd by Hazard. It's going to get forced out here, so he's got to find another way. As Focus Blast connects, he's got to find, and with Scarf Chomp is not going to make any headway while Skarmory is around. Goes to his own Darkrai, and he is advantaged there because Dark Void has higher accuracy than Focus Blast. So it was slightly in Stone's favor there, and he gets the Dark Void off, hits the Darkrai, gets some lefties, Bad Dreams, and now Kyogre is going to come right in, and if it switches into a Dark Pulse there, then that's going to hurt its sweeping potential. Can he afford to... He affords to... he doesn't afford. He does replace the Rain with Sun once more, but Kyogre is going to switch in. Actually, it has 2 more Hazard switch-ins. But Kyogre eating the SD like that, or the Dark Pulse like that, puts it in Ray E-Speed range. And also, since it's Airlock, then it means that it's not going to threaten Ray with a water-boosted Hydro Pump. And he just goes right for Overheat. I was going to say, is he going to SD? No, he goes for the Overheat on the Scarm, trying to absorb the E-Speed and see what it could do there. But that's really, really nice. With Darkrai slept, not likely to wake up, and Kyogre in E-Speed range, Rayquaza is very likely to pose a threat. And in Sun, yeah, no, that's that's really nice, actually, because Manaphy is good in rain because it can rest, of course, but actually, no, you can't even set up rain against Rayquaza again because Airlock prevents hydration from going off. So Ray just really showing its stuff here. E-Speeds to play it safe in case it's a faster Manaphy. Oh, it's got Acid Armor. That is an unusual set. So he's just going for the complete, immunity, and it Calm Minds. It does show some speed, and that Draco ends up bouncing off at -2. and just Dragon Claws, but it's still hitting it hard as that Surf does absolutely nothing. Actually, it would have been better if it was in Sun because it would have done even less. And Dragon Claw, as Rayquaza KOs itself with Life Orb Recoil on the rest turn, winds up being ideal for Stone because now he can... Actually, no, it still looks like Darkrai... Well, no, Darkrai is still threatening because of Bad Dreams. So that passively racks up on the Manaphy. Dark Pulse still chunking it. Nasty plots on the second turn. Very nicely done. And now it comes down to... does he have sub? Well, he would have sub before, I think, if he had it. Yeah, now it comes down to Garchomp waking up and cleaning up with what's it called? With EQ. Or Outrage. Oh, unless he subs, yeah. Oh, that's a great move. Because he wants to preserve Manaphy, and so he subs in case... Yeah, no, that's... I don't know, did Pogies need to... I guess he assumed if he didn't sub before, he didn't have it. Like, he was going to sub on the Manaphy and go for Dark Pulse flinches. But, I don't know, did he not need to just stay in and just bank on the Chomp not waking up? You know, as long as he prevents the Darkrai sub, then I think he's fine. But now the Darkrai wins, for sure. So... great comeback by Stone against the Demon Manaphy, as he called it. Yeah, I don't know, Manaphy... I guess if he thinks Manaphy can take a hit from Garchomp, then it might make a difference. But I don't know. I think he just had to stay in and commit to... Oh, I think... Wait, no, he can't. No, he can't Dark Void the Manaphy because the Darkrai's already asleep. Yeah, I don't know then. I think maybe I'm overlooking something because I've been narrating for over an hour. But yeah, that felt like Manaphy should have just stayed in. I mean, it was still very much in Stone's or up to Stone's Garchomp because it had to wake up. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something because it can't use Sleep Talk against the Kyogre because then it fails and then it will lose to the Darkrai. So yeah, sack Manaphy, go to Kyogre, and hope that the Chomp doesn't wake up. Seemed better. I don't know. I guess it's a guarantee. It's more of a guarantee. Yeah, I guess it's better to have like a Manaphy to try and take. But I don't think. No, Garchomp is not gonna not do 34 to Manaphy. Come on, it was faster than Rayquaza. So yeah, I think Manaphy should have stayed in there. But that's gonna keep Stone alive as they go to a game 3. Dio Speed, Kyogre, Spikes, Water Spout, no Sash, Latios, Thunder. I assume Thunder's the Bronzong. Gonna 3-hit KO as Bronzong shows that it's not a Latios counter, it just dies to Latios less immediately than the rest. And it gets rocks in return and gets KO'd. So 5-5, Latios going to get chased out by the Scarf Garchomp. Double switch to Kyogre on the physical answer. And he stays in Draco Meteors. Wow. That's a really heads-up move by Stone, because a lot of people are just going to default, yeah, let me go to my Groudon or my whatever that can take this Dragon Claw that it's threatening me with. And Stone knows, look, Pogies is a good player who is going to not just thud with a Dragon Claw into a Steel and then get forced out. He's going to take advantage of it exactly the way he just did. And he's rewarded with this Draco on the Kyogre, which then takes it out. Now Pogies is going to go to Roserade on a Grass Knot, which, okay, that's funny. -2 Latios doing 3% to Roserade, which is a very light Pokemon, and it quad resists it and has good special defense. So that's funny. Yeah, so now the Roserade is going to actually kind of pose a threat because it has T-Spikes and it's got a good speed tier and Stab Grass for Groudon who gets the sub up. But he just wants the Sun for Ho-Oh. Yeah, that's really big. That Draco is huge because now Kyogre can't replace the Sun with Rain, and now Ho-Oh. Well, I mean, if this Roserade has a sleep move, no, but the Ho-Oh is faster. It got leftovers first. So it's going to roost up or just go for Sacred Fire. It's going to sub. Oh, no, but Lugia's going to come in and Whirlwind it out. So I don't know. I get it, but... Nah, yeah. But, I mean, the Yeah, it's just gonna be a battle. Well, now that Groudon is poisoned, it's gonna be a battle of whether Ho-Oh or Garchomp can win faster, based on what we see so far. Oh, but the Lugia's got Calm Mind, and I mean it can get T-Waved by the Groudon, and it gets Rocks because that's important, of course. And the Groudon's not going to be doing much else because it's not going to change how Ho-Oh or Mewtwo beat it at this point. So you may as well get the Rocks. And the Lugia shows Air Cutter, which is a better mono. Yeah, it's because Lugia doesn't have even have Air Slash. So, and if you want a mono Calm Mind attacker with Whirlwind and Recover or Roost, then you don't want Ice Beam because it's weak and no stab and doesn't have a lot of PP. Whereas Air Cutter has a lot of PP. So Stone goes to Mewtwo to force it out or to beat it down with Self-Destruct. As Air Cutter, Air Cutter has 40 PP, which is a lot. So he's gonna blow it up, and it's gonna roost the damage off. Now Ho-Oh is gonna come in and threaten with Sunny Sacred Fire, as the Lugia is fighting off Paralysis. He's gonna recover first, maybe. No, he's gonna go right for the Sacred Fire, and no Para, and that's probably gonna. I mean because he roars into Groudon, which I don't think can KO it from this range. No crit, no Para, yeah. And Lugia showing just how devastating it is against offense with T-Spike support. As Outrage just bounces off, and Lugia's going to take over this game. If Ho-Oh had recovered or Sacred Fired, or I think Recover was safer than subbing, and because sub forces Recover anyway, and forces you in a worse spot. And if the opponent can't handle you subbing like that, they're probably gonna lose to you anyway. So if Lugia had been forced to eat a Sacred Fire and been burned, then very different game possibly. So, but now even if the Lugia doesn't win, which it's going to, then the Garchomp will. So, sacked. Latios has to hit Thunders and Sun. Yeah, so. Yeah, Air Cutter, Lugia winning a game is really something. Yeah. So that was another series. Sorry, I'm starting to lose my energy having. There's still a lot of series. No, there's only a couple more series. There's still a lot of replays on my screen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, so Lugia is going to win this one, and Pogies stays alive in the loser's bracket. The Dialga goes down, the Lugia finally does go down. Sadly, Roserade gets KO'd, but Garchomp is now going to finish this one off. So, next series, Pogies versus Jirachi. So, this is round 4. This is, let me double check just to be 100% sure. But yes, this is round 4, the loser's bracket semifinals. So this is where the loser's bracket and winner's bracket are in the same stage of the tournament again. Because in round 3, then the winner's bracket was already in semis, and whereas the loser's bracket was in quarters. But now it's semis for both because the winner's bracket game from round 3 are the same as winner's bracket from round 4, and they haven't been played yet. We'll get to those. So this is the first semi series of the loser's bracket. Pogies versus Jirachi. T-Tar, Kyogre. Kyogre is faster, so Rain is replaced with Sand. Hydro misses on Dialga with a nickname that feels very personal towards me. Rocks. Scarm comes in on Zong. Spikes. Kyogre, lots of hazard pressure. And Hydro is going to do nothing again, missing. And losing half its PP because of pressure. Stays in and goes for Hydro again. So it's got one Hydro left in that Dialga, and it doesn't do very much at all. And it gets roared out, revealing Manaphy again. So this is a solid matchup for Dialga, which gets crit by Surf, fair, but also smacks it with Thunder in return, and now Manaphy is in hazard range. So the most Manaphy can do is rest, hydration, and it won't be in hazard range anymore. So that's exactly what it does. and he just Jirachi makes the right move, because if you roar there, that's pointless, because then you're just gonna make sure the mana fee is healthy. Whereas here, you at least force it to remain at near KO range of health. Now Bronzong is going to come in, which is going to great move there. That's a beautiful roar. Unfortunately, it roars in Garchomp, so it winds up chasing the Dialga out. But it was a great move to drag in Kyogre and weaken it, because when you weaken the Kyogre with hazards, then even if the you potentially win the Weather War, and that means even if Manaphy gets the rest off, then it's not enabled by hydration, so much less threatening. So Kyogre coming in on the double switch to Skarm, nice move. And now with the Dialga a little chipped, it's easier to it's not going to be switching in as well. It can still switch in, but Jirachi goes to Latios instead and fires off a Thunder, a big one, and that T-Tar gets paralyzed. So even if it is Scarf, which is less likely, then it's definitely going to get, well, I was going to say Draco Meteor, but Dragon Pulse drops it as well, because that is stronger than Thunder. So Dialga comes in. It's going to likely be Scarf. Whatever it is, T-Tar generally does a good job of checking it, and that is not Scarf, that is Specs. So that is significant, because that means Latios will be able to beat it one-on-one, as that Specs Dragon Pulse doesn't quite take Skarmory out. And Roosts, and no crits, and now it crits on the second layer of spikes, so that's unfortunate. Skarmory is preserved over T-Tar because Skarmory can heal on Zong, so that's a good move. Now Kyogre is going to be able to permanently keep the rain up, but it's still, Manaphy is still even more weak coming in than before, as Latios still is going to have a switch in. In fact, Latios doesn't even mind the rain. It is going to enjoy not getting chunked by sand. So Skarm comes in and lives Gyro Ball just barely. Let's see that again. I always enjoy when a weak Pokemon switches in and just barely lives a hit, and now it's going to be, now it's going to Roost up as Kyogre comes in, and Kyogre doesn't even force a KO because Dialga takes 2 hits from it. So the Skarm bypasses the Specs Pulse Crit, and he sacks Latios. Oh no, that's an inch. I was not expecting that. I guess he really wants to preserve. No, that's a good move. He wants to preserve Dialga's health because Manaphy is a bigger threat now. No, that's a good move, and he winds up catching the Kyogre on an unusual strategy. You don't really see, you see Lumon lead Kyogre all the time, but you don't really see Rest on it. But I really like that, because it helps you go the distance in the Weather War and just be a bigger threat overall. But the longevity on Kyogre is really important when you're supporting something as dependent on it as Manaphy. But you could use a similar tactic for a Swift Swimmer. So he just goes for Thunder, Kyogre not wanting to risk it, because Kyogre is a big threat. And so he's just going to sacrifice the Bronzong, especially because sacrificing the Bronzong effectively KOs the Latios anyway, because now Garchomp comes in and threatens it out. With the Scar, and that Scarm also gets crit by the Dragon Claw, but unless it gets crit a second time, then it's not going to get KO'd. And now the Scarm is he's not even going to go for it, he's going to go to Dialga on the Roost, and Latios is going to get sacrificed here, and then chased out by which of the two unrevealeds? Jirachi's own Garchomp, which just goes right for EQ. It's a very easily spam move. He's going to have to revenge it with Kyogre. As the Dialga goes down, a big threat is lost. Dialga switches in here, and it's gonna get thundered and dragon or hydro pumped or whatever. But I guess he only has one more hydro pump. But so he doesn't want to hydro into well, now the Dialga can still deal with the Manaphy a little bit. But he's going for the last Pokemon Manaphy sweep here. So Jirachi's got to have a plan for that. Thing is, he's going to... And that Scarf eats its 3rd crit of the game. But it avoids getting KO'd just narrowly. But yeah, he's going to get that 3rd layer of spikes up. And Manaphy is... actually, no, it dies at the 3rd layer of spikes, doesn't it? Unless I'm... No, it does. It does. So he had to get it in and... Yeah, I think the move was to go to Garchomp and then double switch to Manaphy before it could get that third layer of spikes. As the Skarm is just going to stall out the Chomp. As it hurts itself in confusion. And yeah, we're being... Yeah, it dies a spike, so we had to double switch to Manaphy and try to get the rest off. So that's game 1, as Manaphy does indeed... Yeah, I thought I was going crazy for a sec. Yeah, so it gets KO'd, and that's the game. So, game 2, let's keep the perspective. T-Tar, Ho-Oh. Pogies is going to get out of there as Rock Slide goes off, not even Stone Edge. I guess why risk it? And now Latias comes in onto into the Groudon, and Ho-Oh without Rocks Up is a very good... Oh, okay, maybe not a great Latias answer if it's offensive Ho-Oh and the Latias has Draco Meteor. Traditionally, though, it has been a good one. So now Blissey comes into the -2 and takes nothing, but Ho-Oh has been chunked severely. It's got to come in on rocks now, like from this Dialga. And even when it does come in on rocks... Oh, great move. That was a great move by Pogies. Because the Latias is at -4, so even if it does make the unlikely move of Dracoing again, Ho-Oh can survive it. And, then I think it can take -4 Draco into -6. And, if it has Recover, great. And even if not, then, it can still play around it easier. But it does have Roost. And it gets Draco... Oh, Specs Dracoed. Wow, that's a bit... Oh, no, Life Orb, sorry. And it just barely lives, but it's going to be forced into another Roost. I thought Jirachi was going to go to T-Tar there. This might be Rock's Outrage then. Yes, it is. Yeah, I don't know. It feels like T-Tar could have come in there because T-Tar's not going to be too useful against Groudon, and the Outrage Dialga is going to be much more threatening with Rocks Up when Blissey tries to check it later, as opposed to sacrificing this Dialga just to take down the Ho-Oh, which you can do through other means. So now with the burn... Well, actually, no, just the Life Orb. Well, the burn prevents it from KOing the Ho-Oh there. So, yeah, I think that was not the best use of the Dialga. The Draco into the rock's fine, but then after that, I think you go with the T-Tar into forcing it out with Latias approach. Well, T-Tar is going to come into Blissey here. And if you've got Fire Blast, then you can use Groudon's Sun against it and chunk it hard, but it's generally not going to be too effective in that regard. Paybacks, which doesn't do too much. It's boosted by the switch. But now Latias comes in, eats a Dragon Claw, and now this is looking not too good as Latias is in Rock's range. Doubles on the Blissey to Rayquaza. Ho can be sacked at any time, but Mewtwo just comes right into it on the SD because the come from behind boosting Ray option is always a good one, but his team is just a little too healthy for it to be a problem. And now Scarf U-turn out of Fortress to prevent any Iron Head antics. But with Mewtwo being down, well, Groudon is really healthy is the problem. He goes to Fortress to try and pry Life Orb damage out of it, and he does. But yeah, with Groudon being healthy, might not take 2, but it chunks it. I don't know. This is still looking threatening, but Blissey can take an EQ, worst case, and the Groudon doesn't even die to the second one. So yeah, I mean the tools were there, but not quite enough to seal the deal. As I mean, I guess theoretically, no, it's a Dialga last. No way that Jirachi is going to flinch through everything. If it was like a Lottie Twin or something, then yeah, actually, but. T-Tar comes in, and the Dialga shows Earthquake, so anti-Heatran technology. As in comes Mewtwo, sacrificed to the Superpower. Is the Groudon going to be faster than the T-Tar? It's not, and it gets finished off by Payback at -1. So, now if the Jirachi... Yeah, but I think even without Bulk Up, I think the Dialga is probably going to win one-on-one. There was no way that T-Tar was going to make its way, with superpowers its move, make its way through both Dialga and Blissey with the attack drops, but just Dialga alone. But yeah, it's sub-bulk up EQ, so that's cool. And really going to get that second bulk up in, and that's going to be game 2. We're going to game 3. Dio Speed, Kyogre, spikes, surf, crit, sash, and rocks. I wonder if that means he has 2 rockers on that team if he prioritizes spikes. That's cool. Now in comes Latios, big threat. That Jirachi is going to get absolutely eviscerated by Thunder. Gets parried too, and full parried, and Latios gets a free KO. But in comes Darkrai, and Pursuit Darkrai is a really cool Pokemon because when you send Darkrai in, I think it's a High Lord invention, and I really liked it, and I wound up using it in a video called I forget what it is, but it's on my channel. It's from like 2 years ago, and I had a team with Pursuit Darkrai I really like because it's such a cool strategy. Because Darkrai forces out things like Giratina O and Latios, or either Lati Twin, and they're gonna sacrifice something else to your Dark Void, right? But when you Pursuit, you KO them, and then you still have the free KO button of Dark Void. So it's really cool to see it there, and Darkrai is able to wrest some much needed momentum back. Oh, that sucks. Draco missing into Focus Blast hitting. That's brutal. Focus Blast somehow doesn't KO, but now the Dialga is, the Thunder stuff was unfortunate on Jirachi, but I think that's really game breaking because now Dialga dies to spikes. Now Jirachi's own Darkrai comes in and it voids the Scarm right away. So that's getting worn down, but still a very come from behind thing. As in comes Dialga, slower lefty's Dialga into the Darkrai. I don't know if he just assumed that it wouldn't have Focus Blast or if he didn't have any better options. But he's going to get up rocks as Jirachi's own Dialga is sacrificed, and in comes Lucario. But there's very likely a Giratina origin there. Oh, but it's fast, and I assume that was a tie because Jirachi loves his fast Lucarios. So it's a timid offensive offensive Dialga, and if he went to as Jirachi first, but I understand, you can't just go to Jirachi and sacrifice it just to paralyze the Dialga, so you might be able to win with Lucario after. Yeah, but it looks like, it might have been the move, because Lucario's looking pretty good if Manaphy is the last. And there's no Scarf, unless it's a Scarf lead Kyogre, but that doesn't seem likely. But yeah, in comes slow turns out of the Manaphy, but this is, unless it flinches, then yeah, it doesn't look like it's going to be getting anything done, barring some serious luck. So that's going to be the end of this series. So that was a tight one. So that means Pogies advances to the semifinals of the losers bracket. Wait, am I reading this right? I think I just messed something up. Oh no, this is the Pogies advances to the quarterfinals of the losers bracket because someone's going to drop from the finals. Because someone's going to drop from the semifinals of the winners bracket. My apologies. So this was the quarterfinals of the. Whatever. I'm getting mixed up on the terminology, but yeah, there are going to be 4 players in the losers bracket even after this round. Yeah. So that's that series. Now we go to the other losers bracket round 4 series from this matchup, which is High Lord versus Byron. The Darkrai tricks the Ho-Oh as Scarf to make it less threatening and receives leftovers for its efforts. So it, the Brave Bird, that's actually telling because Lefties is not very common on Ho-Oh lead. You generally see things like Lum, Pasho, Band, Charcoal even. Charty Berry feasibly to live I think it should help you live a T-Tar. Well, not a banned one, but like, no, I'm tripping. I think someone mentioned Charty and then realized it was bad. Because it was in a discussion about like Stone Edge Rayquaza or something. So yeah, forget I said that one. The other ones are all much better. So now, with it locked into Brave Bird and not even getting the power of Choice Band, Dialga becomes a very free switch. Rocks go up. Groudon comes in. Kyogre comes in on the rocks. And the Ho-Oh did very little there. I'm surprised. I guess, I don't know. If it had Sacred Fired, then it would have been doing a lot more, feels like. Because even if you thud into a resist, then you're leaving it with a burn. That would have been much better. But now, I mean, chunking the Darkrai is nice, but it's not like you could have seen Trick coming. Well, I guess it's not something you couldn't have even thought of. But Yeah, generally Sacred Fire in situations like that. If you're not banded, because banned actually KOs Darkrai. But if you're not, then Sacred Fire is just better because you have you're not incurring recoil on yourself. I don't know. I just think Fire was better. But yeah, Kyogre T-Waves the Latios even after it was revealed on the Groudon Protect because Groudon's not staying in there. Latios tries to even the stakes with Thunder, but does nothing to Dialga, which is now a much better check to it. Heatran comes in, still a decent check to Rainy. Well, not a great one because it spams Thunder, but a Lava Plume Burn is fairly ruinous. But he's trying to pivot into Groudon on the Thunder. Great move. Really nicely done. So now in comes Latios, gets roared out, brings Dialga back in. So information and chip damage. And Hylord's not going to want to tango here again. He gets roared again. Byron really pushing the advantage, not afraid to... because a lot of players get pressured there. They're like, oh, he's going to stay in this time. No, he roars again. And the upside of that, of course, is even if he does make the unlikely move, it stays in Dragon Pulses, the likelihood is that... or there's a solid chance that you reveal one of his two last Pokemon. So Kyogre comes in, unfortunately, and is going to Ice Beam. Not quite getting a 2-hit KO, but Latios is in a real dangerous area here. One could even call it the danger zone. And gets full parrot as Fori comes in. So it's going to be faster than Fortress still, which is hilarious. But it's going to give up T-Spikes. Oh, and now Byron reveals he also has a semi-stallish team with the Fori as opposed to something more aggressive. Or immediately aggressive. In comes Giratina O, blocking the spin, and it's going to sub, and if it's sub Calm Mind Roar, it's going to completely turn the tables on Heatran. I guess Fori can come in, can stay in and break its subs with Payback, but it's going to get PP stalled really quick because of pressure. But at the same time, you limit how healthy Giratina is. But you do also have a Scarf Ho-Oh to sacrifice. But what you risk here is, yeah, that happening. Giratina roaring first, which has been used a couple times in this tournament, specifically for that and for Roar Dialga. That's a big one. Goes for the Sacred Fire Burn, does not get it, and drags in Mewtwo. So Hylord got his T-Spikes down first and his setup sweeper in first, and that's going to make a huge difference. The Mewtwo does burn the Giratina, so even though the +3 Dragon Pulse really slams it, but Fori and Heatran has already been chunked really hard, and Fori is gonna get up more hazards at least. He's trying to spin. I don't know. Well, he's gonna get roared around too. So Hyler just gonna litter the hazard and the Dragon Pulse damage everywhere, and then he's going to clean up with. He doesn't. His Scarfer is no longer a Scarfer. But Darkrai is because Ho-Oh gets KO'd, but he's got a full health Kyogre, yeah, against paralyzed Latias as the only check, and Darkrai slow around. He's got his own Latias, so yeah, with Heatran being weakened, then yeah, this is looking, yeah, the most that Byron can do is get up spikes, or a second layer of T-Spikes at least, so that he can try and stall out the Kyogre somehow. Which, not the worst plan, but not a great one either. Tries to double protect, gets taken out. I mean, he's even struggling to just withstand this Giratina before all that happened. So Heatran protects the Giratina Calm Minds, and second protect fails, but it roars. Latias dragged in, paralyzed. No. Heatran, protect, roar. And he's just trying to... Well, Dragon Pulsing there is... fair. I think he was trying to roar to get Latias in as weak as possible from rock so Kyogre could make stuff happen. He goes to Kyogre to get up Rain and then goes right to Dialga, not letting it take any poison chip damage. Great move. And now Dialga itself is also fairly threatening. Heatran protects again. Byron staying with it to the end. And now going to Groudon. I mean, even if it switches into Thunder, Hylord's still fine because it's poisoned. Regular poisoned, of course. And the Groudon has revealed that it doesn't have Dragon Claw, so it or even T-Wave. So Hylord dares him to roar, and Byron makes he 1-ups it. He double switches to Heatran on the Latias. Heatran is now the one thing he can do to try and win because it destroys a Fortress, obviously. Also, Heatran would maybe he was expecting Fori to come in and try and spin there on the Groudon because it's shown that it's gonna have EQ last. It's not gonna have a fire move. So he was maybe daring him to do that, and he was covering that. But Heatran also covers Latias and Sun. It's a good option. With Thunder Dialga, in Sun, Heatran's going to do that. Darkrai is at very low health and going to be poisoned. So Heatran can mount a comeback if he can survive the Kyogre. So props to Byron for staying in the game and really sticking to it right to the end. So, I mean, unless the Kyogre has rest, but it's not going to have rest. T-Wave rest? What is that? So he Toxics, trying to catch the Latias, thundering or something. But it effectively does nothing, as I guess he wasn't expecting Kyogre to switch right in the event that it gets roared out and starts taking rocks. Although I guess if you roar, that's still not something to be afraid of, because if you roar Kyogre and bring in Fori, then it spins because it'll live Lava Plume, I'm pretty sure. Oh no, he sacks Heatran. Oh no. I guess he was trying to stay in on an Ice Beam or something. I don't know. That's tough. I mean, it was going to be like an uphill battle at that point anyway, and now the Kyogre Calm Minds and really is going to put it away. Maybe. No, yeah, it is. Yeah, Darkrai and Latias, of course. I don't know if he preserved Heatran. If he got the moves right, he had a shot. I guess part of the moves he had to get right was to Ice Beam or to like Lava Plume on a double switch or something. So maybe he had to go to Groudon. I don't know. That was a tough one for sure. So yeah. So game 2, same perspective. Deoxys, Kyogre, T-Wave, no Lum, Rocks, Palkia coming in on the water move. Hydro, no lefties, not risking getting thundered for a T-Wave, goes right to Dialga on Palkia's own Thunder. Spatial Ren, not going to 2 KO. Dragon Pulses right away and does not find a Haban Berry, just gets a KO for free. So now in comes Tina O, which can KO Dialga from half with Draco or a very strong EQ, but usually Draco, because it's also boosted by Grisius Orb. Against Dialga's... because Dialga's just got such a massive defense stat naturally. And Giratina generally invests... I mean, it depends, but generally Draco Meter. So Fortress takes both, and it's going to get up a hazard. That hazard is going to be T-Spikes. Kyogre comes in before the hazard goes down. Dialga being so weakened means that Byron's Kyogre is threatening now. Hydro smacks it, but it's a faster Dialga, and it gets a Thunder off before going down. So Byron does show lefties on his own Kyogre, and Giratina into Kyogre can... Thunder's not going to quite KO it, but it's also going to effectively win the one-on-one. So Byron's Kyogre did scatter a lot of damage in its wake, so it's up to... he makes a really, really ballsy move there going to Tina O. But I get it, because if you're assuming the set is Thunder, Sneak, EQ, Draco, then Sneak, if you're at full health, Giratina O can take Sneak. It's insanely bulky. And you're not going to just drop Draco on Kyogre at like 2%. Or, whatever, 9. And he winds up coming in on a Thunder. So great move. Fori's going to come in, and he doesn't even sneak. He thunders, so Fori avoids getting another free turn to payback or something. So Byron really just playing his heart out, making the tough plays, the risky calls, and then following through on them, because he's like, all right, it's safe, I better play it safe. And he's like, no, I'm going to Thunder away. I'm not going to just let him switch to Kyogre or Fortress in for... I think he was expecting Kyogre more than Fori, but I'm not going to let Kyogre come in for free. Because he wants to preserve that Giratina's Shadow Sneak. That's always a valuable tool to have. So really nicely done. In comes Darkrai, which of course is famous for wresting the momentum back, and he's going to sacrifice the Deoxys. Doesn't even get voided with Bad Dreams because of paralysis, and E-Speed chunks it a little bit, so that helps for the Scarf Jirachi, which Ironhead flinch. And now Kyogre's going to come in. And it takes Ironhead's well, of course. Darkrai has one more switch into rocks. And the Kyogre gets sacked, of course. Oh, but he Calm Minds. That's going to make revenge killing it a lot harder. Byron goes to Tyranitar to cut off the leftovers. but he's not going to want to stay in and take that +1 Hydro. So he's going to have to go to Giratina O on the Hydro, which does a lot. And now, yeah, it looks like Kyogre's going to bring this one in. Oh, he saw he was faster with the sand damage, and he decided to not even go for Shadow Sneak. He's going to go for a Hydro Pump, which makes sense, though. He probably could have reasoned that even without help from the sand, because it's a T-Wave Calm Mind Kyogre. They don't run Speed EVs. That's what T-Wave is for, so you can invest in power and bulk. And he misses Thunder, unfortunately, but I think at this point it's, he was just the Kyogre alone, let alone the unrevealed Pokemon he has in the back. So he Iron Heads, he gets the flinch, and he's going to sack this, and it winds up being a Garchomp. So even, I thought at first he was going to replace the sand with rain so that he could take Iron Heads better, but he just winds up winning with Garchomp instead. So I'm going to take one of my famous bathroom breaks because high-lowered stays alive in the winner's bracket. So always great to see. And now we have 2 more series to get through in this video. Wow, this is a long one. And the fun thing about these series is that these are the round 3 and 4 winners bracket games. So the loser of this series is not done yet. They will go to the losers bracket. So, BRB. All right, gotta stay more hydrated. Can't believe it's been like an hour and 40 minutes since my last drink of water. Yeah, no wonder I was getting a little tired there. I mean, I also need to eat, but yeah, what's more important than eating? This winner's bracket matchup between 64 Squares and Lady Eiko. Another Ho-Oh lead. Love to see it. Darkrai Void misses. Brave Bird does not KO. And with the rise of items like Pasho and CB on lead Ho-Oh, then Darkrai became more confident in Dark Voiding it. And even when you have Lum Ho-Oh, then it's not going to be strong enough to KO Darkrai in return, so you can theoretically just Dark Void it twice. And yeah, Choice Band can run Sleep Talk, but it's not going to Sleep Talk immediately in most cases. And it can only Sleep Talk once because of the choice restrictions. So Dark Void misses into Thunder misses, so rough start. Yeah, the plan was clearly Dark Void twice if it's Lum, and then once the first Dark Void misses, alright, I'm just going to damage it really hard. Now, Eiko's own Ho-Oh comes in and Brave Birds and does a lot. It's faster. And Squares' own Ho-Oh does not KO itself with recoil, and that winds up being advantageous for Eiko because she gets an extra turn of leftovers. So, I mean, does burn 2 Sacred Fire PP because of pressure, but now in comes Groudon into Latios. Generally not a great switch. I guess if you just want the Sun up, but that also gets crit. And in comes Roserade, which is also not an answer really, but it's gonna, from the fact it doesn't have Black Sludge, it's clearly gonna have some T-Spikes going on. or sorry, some obviously gonna have T spikes. It's gonna have some choice scarf, so it's gonna either sleep or get the T spikes down and go for that. And the T spikes go down, and now Groudon comes in on the ice. I don't know. That felt like a hasty ice beam switch. I know it's for the free Ho-Oh sub, but I don't know if that's worth it because the Latios is Dragon Pulse, so it's not even like you can take advantage of Draco Thunder Latios and Sun. It's gonna roost. Yeah, I don't. Surely there had to be a better way to do that, but really lacking in Latios answers. It looks like, unless there, yeah, because there's no like Heatran or Blissey or anything. So in comes Dialga, which is gonna Dragon Claw. So it's also gonna be some, sub pressure abusing stuff. There's the sub, but if Heatran roars, then I mean actually, and Lava Plume breaks the sub. Of course, it's in Sun. It's pressure's annoying, but even sub protect. I mean, Lava Plume has a lot of PP, so well, it's got 12, but yeah. In comes Rayquaza, which is airlocking the Sun damage, but it's not Lum, and it eats the burn. And now in comes Ho-Oh again on the Groudon switch, so it really is Ho-Oh or bust in this matchup. And in comes Latios again, which, usually not really a... But, I mean, okay, in that vacuum earlier, it wasn't worth it, but... Okay, that's not what I was expecting. I was going to say the more opportunities Latios gets to win this game, then the less Latios becomes able to check it at all, because Dragon Pulse runs out of PP quickly against pressure. But now with Brave Bird being the move, then now it's in range of Draco Meteor. Unless the goal is to draw a Draco. I don't know if Dialga was the better choice there over Rayquaza. But, because if you're going to go with the pressure stall route, then you can go with Pressure, Ho-Oh, and Dialga to try and get one over on Groudon. I mean, yeah, or sorry, not Groudon, on Lava Pluming Heatran. Because this Ho-Oh does not have EQ, so it's going to struggle with Heatran, but it might pressure stall it. But either way, I think it's going to be more useful than the Rayquaza. But it drew the Draco, and Ho-Oh gets to roost, and it's going to be at full health, and it's going to sub on the Cress. And the Cress is going to Lunar Dance, just like last series, and now Latios is at full health again. And the thing about Lunar Dance is that it restores PP as well as HP and status. So, that Dragon Pulse is back to full. But Sacred Fire does 50 to Latios and Sun because, good lord, and it gets the burn. So now Ho-Oh is at least going to be able to stall that out. Barring Refresh or, Recover or anything. Dragon Pulse doing a lot, but not quite enough. And Latios has 2 more turns left. In comes Shiftry on another Roost, and it's going to threaten an explosion. And indeed it does explode, and it gets caught by the Rayquaza. So once again, it's Ho-Oh versus the world, as it's going to sub on this Heatran. And if the Heatran is taunt, then... Oh, but it doesn't. And now things are getting interesting, because Ho-Oh's got a lot of Brave Birds left. But it also takes recoil, and Heatran might have Protect. So it does have Protect. So this is looking less good in that regard. I mean, Brave Bird's still doing a lot, though. I don't know, maybe you want a Lava Plume more to break, to force Ho-Oh to use more subs, and that gives you more HP with which to survive, to withstand Brave Birds. So I think you want to be breaking those subs with Lava Plume. I don't know. That's a great substitute on the Protect, and just beating this Heatran down. There it is again. I mean, and 14 Brave Birds, so... Yeah, and now finally the Lava Plume goes off, which is going to draw another sub. And, oh, it explodes! Okay, that's very cool set, first of all. I like that a lot, because it's unexpected, and even if it is expected, it's always a good thing to have, because you can directly take out something like Kyogre or Lottie Twin or Palkia. And now Latios comes in, and Draco doesn't KO! And it looks like Ho-Oh is about to pull off the most miraculous of comebacks. And it doesn't crit. And it's going to sub. Oh, it didn't sub. I thought it was going to for sure. And it's going to sub on the Groudon. And it's T-Waves. And wow, what a comeback. Ho-Oh proving how incredible it is for the millionth time. That was pretty astonishing. Yeah. Kyogre lead. T-Tar lead. Switching out to Latios on the Spout, which gets a crit, so a nasty start there, as the Spout damage is going to be weakened by the sand into the Draco, into the sand, but the crit puts it into range of Icy Wind. That's a cool tech to have, because that gives you the speed dropping of paralysis while hitting at the same time and not being pivotable by ground types. So really nice thing there, especially because you could still run. I don't think you'd run Ice. No, you would run Icy Wind into Ice Beam, because for situations where one Ice Beam on the switch against a faster target like Latios isn't going to do it, then you can Icy Wind, slow them down, and chunk them into the range of that next Ice Beam. So yeah, I like to see that. But I think you also need Surf and Thunder. So I don't think you need Icy Wind and Ice Beam, but I think it would be more, if I were to run it, it'd be Hydro Pump, Icy Wind, Ice Beam, Thunder. But then you might not run it in the lead slot. And if you want to run Water Spout in the lead slot, then yeah, I definitely understand dropping Ice Beam. So Fori gets, I think Echo might have had the same idea, or just wanted T-Spikes from Fori, because it takes a Surf and now goes to Dialga and Dragon Pulses. So that Kyogre left a lot of damage in its wake, and now the Magnezone is going to come in and trap that Pulse Lock Dialga. Yeah, it's like on a 4A team, it's less likely it's more likely you're going to need the balance of or the stability of a Scarf Dialga, and less some funky wall breaking stuff. So you're not risking it being Fire Blasts on a mix set or something nearly as much. Draco from Giratina in Revenge rips half of Dialga's health off. It's going to get a lot of health back, especially as T-Tar comes in and shows Pursuit. If it's choiced, now the Dialga's going to get up rocks, and if it's choiced, now this game's looking like it's going to be a runaway. I don't know if that was necessary. Yeah, like the chunking of the Dialga would have helped, but it's not it's not a significant enough amount, to say nothing of how yeah, I don't know. I don't think Dialga has much reason to be. I don't know. That just didn't seem like a move with enough upside. Kyogre doubles in and gets crit by Giratina Thunder. So this game kind of dropped when the Latios got crit by Water Spout on the first turn. Yeah, and the rest was just, I understand it was a desperation move to bring something back, as the CB Tar KOs Giratina in one with payback, which is impressive. But yeah, now the Dialga is going to win. So 1-1, game 3. Dio Speed, Kyogre, Rocks, Spout, no Sash. What's coming in? Latios or Palkia? Latios. Jirachi. Uh-oh. This gets ugly. Oh, it Dracos. It doesn't Thunder. All right. So that might suggest that this is a Sun team with Grass Knot Latios instead of Thunder. And you would not use Grass Knot against Kyogre there, because you want to do more to the Steel switch in. So in comes Jirachi with a lot of bulk and lefties, and it gets up rocks. So Darkrai comes in, again doing that classic thing where it makes up for losing a Pokemon with hazards by shutting something else down with sleep, therefore justifying the choice of sacrificing a Pokemon for hazards even more. And it shows Focus Punch, very cool. So that would have really slammed like a T-Tar pivot or something. But yeah, it's a good move on Pursuit Darkrai. Brick Break is safer, but Focus Punch obviously slams Dialga a hell of a lot more. So, speaking of, in comes Dialga. Almost certainly going to be Scarf. Going to be a threat. I was just going to say it's going to be a threat to offense, and in comes Wobbuffet, which specifically exists to remove things like this for offense. It's gonna. Yeah, but it's not Custap. It's lefties. So, and it's not going to take two. That might be a modest Scarf Dialga, which is a great set. So it's not going to be able to take two Draco Meteors, even with the special attack drop, with Rocks up. So the Wob pretty much just winds up being a one-time sponge to Draco and not doing much else. Because the idea of Wob for offense is to remove Scarfers, to enable things like Rayquaza. But yeah, it winds up just pivoting into Scizor instead, which is, well, it dodges, so that helps. The Scizor shows lefties, okay, so it's not CB, so it's less significant than it would have been otherwise. Oh, but first of all, the Dialga crits immediately with Thunder afterwards, and it shows it's not choiced. So maybe that Wob switched in because it wasn't expecting the Draco meter to be so strong. Again, my head calc is somewhere else entirely, and that Dialga is like Adamant Orb or something. The Scizor U-turns. Whether, if we were calcing, we would be able to get more into this. But, it's either because he thought Eiko switching is locked into -2 Draco, or because there's no better move to make and just want to slow U-turn into a threat, into, that being Latios. But yeah, Wobbuffet is completely out of commission now because it's slow and it requires taking a hit to get anything done. With counter code or encore or debond, and it doesn't have cuss tap, so and now Draco misses and outrage. This Dialga really went on a rampage. But now it's locked into outrage, and Wob is also really good at supporting this thing, and it might give Groudon Rock Polish and SD, and it does. And it outrages again, so that gives even more credence to Adamant Orb if you're really overloading on the Dragon Saps. Now we got a +2. I mean, this is still not necessarily enough to win because Giratina O can take one, or can take a +2 Dragon Claw, but it doesn't look like it. Oh, but Lugia. Oh, he just went to Lugia, I assume because because if it does have Stone Edge, then Latios tanks it, and Latios against Scizor and a Darkrai is kind of whatever. Actually, no, because the crit, then Scizor now dies to Stealth Rock, so it's just a matter of Darkrai, and I guess Lugia is a little better. I think it doesn't make much of a difference, but went to that to make sure that the second move was just SDs hoping for a choke on a Roost or something, and now it's going to be Darkrai against, I guess if you pursue, the idea is if you pursuit the Lugia here and prevent it from waking up, and prevent it from acting as sleep fodder, then Sleep Clause is no longer in effect, and you can sleep Kyogre, but then you have to do it against the last too, and there's almost surely going to be a slow last. The Lugia does not instantly wake up, and in comes Kyogre. Oh yeah, Focus Punch is actually Physical Darkrai's best physical move, and it is a Scarf lead Kyogre. You don't see that very much, and it's just going to clean up the game. So Eiko is going to stay in the winner's bracket, and 64 squares moves to the loser's bracket. So the final series of today is our second winners bracket series in, our final winners bracket series of rounds 3 and 4, and it's Gare versus Tomahawk. Rocks, Spout, No Sash, Latios. It's going to go for Grass Knot instead of Draco, and it hits Kyogre hard, heals with lefties, so it gets some relief against rocks, and it T-Waves. Now, Dialga's going to come in, probably going to eat a Draco. Oh, no, it just goes right for a HP Fighting. That's not something you see on Latios very much, but I like the choice, not just because it slams T-Tar, which it obviously does, but it also hits Dialga really hard without the special attack drop of Draco Meteor. So I really like seeing that. That's very cool. So because it hits way harder than Dragon Pulse without. I mean, you see it there. That's big damage. Puts it into Draco range. So Dialga gets up rocks. So we got an interesting start in that Kyogre's weakened, Dialga's dead. Both sides have rocks. Deoxys is dead. Latios is paralyzed. And in comes Skarmory getting spikes, and in comes a Groudon. Now Skarmory's not going to stay in. It's going to go to Giratina. And Gary makes a great move seeing that the Skarm is going to be scared of the Life Orb, potentially Fire Punch. Life Orb or Lum, but even just a Sunny Lum Fire Punch is going to hit really hard. Let me make sure the music is playing. Thank you. and makes a great move in Dragon Claws the Giratina O-Switch, which seems safe either way. Now, Giratina is going to save Shadow Sneak. Jirachi's not going to risk it. Gary's not going to risk it, and Jirachi comes in, and Scarf U-turns out of the what's it called? The Scarm, and gets a free Ho-Oh switch, which is going to take rocks, of course. Is it going to sub on the Kyogre? No, it's going to Sacred Fire, and now the Weather War is won as Kyogre goes down. But now Mewtwo comes in, presumably to start firing off Thunders, and Mewtwo looks pretty scary against this lineup with Thunder. But it's going to Calm Mind. Brave Bird does not quite do enough. It's not going to outdamage Recover and Leftovers. But he's not going to recover. He doesn't want to get burned. He just goes right for Thunder. And now he's afraid. I was going to say afraid of Jirachi getting flinched down. But Scarf Rayquaza comes in. An unusual pick. And it's going to Revenge Kill with Outrage. Very cool. So now Scarm is going to get more and more spikes because he's trying to just wear down Groudon as much as possible so he can pick it off with Giratina. Same with Jirachi, so that if he can get around this... Yeah, because we've got an Unrevealed from Tomahawk, and with Scarm and Sneak Giratina, then he can potentially dance around these threats. So in comes Groudon on the presumed third layer spikes, and he does get it. So, and he's going to go for that Life Orb Fire Punch and just come up short. Gets a nasty burn, and that, you know, as soon as that damage goes off, though, then Scarf Ray becomes a lot more threatening. And that was kind of the issue. He doesn't go for the Dragon move, though. He goes to Groudon and gets Whirlwinded again. I guess maybe he didn't have Dragon Claw, or maybe he didn't want to give setup to, like, a bulk up Dialga or something. Is he going to Healing Wish with this thing? No, he's going to... Well, something's going to set up. And Giratina Shadow Sneaks, and... What's that last going to be? Lottie? No. No, it's going to be Chomp. And... Yeah, so he sneaks it into Scarf Chomp range, and that Dragon Claw is going to clean this game up. So 1-0 Tomahawk. Cool double Scarf. Cool Scarf Ray in general. So that was a really interesting game. And we move on to game 2. Gary versus Tama. Again, Fori, Dio Speed, no Trick Scarf. We haven't seen a Trick Scarf Deoxys in a while. Gets up those T-Spikes, not getting taunted. In comes Kyogre, and it's going to Calm Mind and put up some pressure immediately as spikes go off. In comes Dialga. You know, good check, but that +1 Hydro does a lot of damage. So even if it roars here... it's still... Oh, well, it dodges Hydro, which is unfortunate. Because if it roars there, then it's going to be really weak, and it's going to be really hard for it to get up rocks. Palkia gets dragged in, runs away from a potential Specs Draco. And Fori comes in and gets dropped by the Rainy Surf. So, in comes DOA, which you don't see too often on Fori teams. And it shows Life Orb. You don't see mid-game DOA too often in general. Stone Cold was really the only guy who was bringing it, but... It's got a lot of potential. In comes Dio Speed, get up some hazards. And Shadow Balls. It's unusual. It's not... It gets up spikes, but it's not taunting. It didn't taunt Fori. It didn't taunt Dialga. Not that you need taunt on Deoxys Speed necessarily. It's just generally something you like having. As Bronzong gets up rocks, so hazards are being matched. And Bronzong's going to EQ the Dialga down. As Hydro shows... both how amazing it is with its power and how terrible it is with its accuracy. And Bronzong is going to get worn down. Hazards are not fully matched because there's T-Spikes, but there's rocks and spikes on both sides. In comes Lugia. And Lugia once again showing with its Calm Mindset how terrifying it can be. This video has really shown how both terrifying and awful it can be. Because, you know, you got the para, you got the crit, but then you got the it takes over the game thing. So there's an Outrage, and not doing much at all. And with the T-Spikes, then Lugia tends to get nasty real fast. So in comes Kyogre, Calm Mind, and even with Calm Mind, then this is going to be... Without Whirlwind, then you know, Lugia's really bulky. So that Hydro does a lot, but not enough. and it's going to get finished off by the poison. And yeah, you got to hope for pairs with the teams like this. And now there's no way whatever the last is going to be able to make its way through 2 unrevealeds and DOA. That would be, whatever that Pokemon would be, that would be pretty insane. Or a very badly built team, obviously, but that's not going to be the case here. And Deoxys A drops it with Life Orb Ice Punch. So, I guess if this doesn't have E-Speed, then, or if the Deoxys has E-Speed, which it, okay, Shadow Ball E-Speed, it's still not going to beat these 2 lasts on its own. It doesn't. Okay, so it doesn't have Taunt. It's 3 attacks. All right, that's an unusual set, but it is a very cool one. So now we go to game 3. Tar. Cruel. We haven't seen Tentacruel in a while. We see a Choice Band Payback just cleanly KOing it as T-Spikes go down. Yeah, and the emphasis on T-Spikes in this game is why you saw not 1 but 2 Roserades. The T-Spike's absorption can be really big, as well as the power of sleep, of course. In comes Groudon, so T-Spikes and Rocks immediately, and he's going to threaten back with, not with his own hazards, but with Giratina. And Tomahawk tries to absorb a Draco with a Heatran, but he eats a Will-O-Wisp instead, but that's actually a sign that it definitely has Earthquake, so he's not going to be able to stay in here. He protects just to be sure, and he finds out. So yeah, it's usually Wisp, Draco, or not Draco, Wisp, EQ, Sneak, Dragonclaw. They tend to be full physical. In comes Lugia, drawing another Will-O-Wisp. But yeah, there's no real... I think he was more expecting Heatran... he was expecting Giratina O to switch out and not risk a Toxic, as opposed to trying to catch another Will-O-Wisp, because... he's just going to go right back to Lugia. So it was more, I think the switch is going to happen. Gary gets the burn on the switch this time and does not get punished with an Ice Beam for his efforts. And in comes Fori. So now there's going to be Heatran and... so some great moves there. Tomahawk goes to Heatran on a presumed Payback or a T-Spike or Spike or whatever. Because you're not just going to spin into non-Ghost. You're not just going to spin into Giratina haplessly there. And Gary was looking, and indeed he didn't do that. He double switched to T-Tar. He tried to get the CB Tar in and on the same turn as Giratina so he could threaten to trap it and then get his spin off and then not have to deal with T-Spikes anymore for whatever his T-Spikes affected unrevealed pokes are. Because Groudon's going to get up rocks eventually, but it's more about getting rid of the T-Spikes for something like, Kyogre maybe. So... and Tomahawk's double switch to Heatran means he has a good matchup against this Tar, not because Tran beats T-Tar one-on-one, but because it protects and racks and scouts its Choice Band move and racks up more poison damage on it. So Groudon comes in, takes a pretty big chunk from CB low kick, but it replaces the Sand with Sun, and where's it going to go from here? Tina O comes in, Tomahawk Dragon Claws it on the switch, nicely done. And even burned Lugia is Lugia's got to be the thumbnail for this Pokemon. For this video? What a Pokemon! And even when burned without rocks up, it's switching into Tina O nicely. And another great move by Tomahawk there, catching the Fori and getting a free Lava Plume off. So now T-Tar's coming in and it's just going to be sacrificed because nothing else really like switching into Heatran in Sun with rocks and T-Spikes. He gets Giratina. That's nice, though. He doesn't quite sack T-Tar. He draws the Protect and gets Giratina O in. But, Giratina O is also on its last legs because it's taking rocks and 2 rounds of sand as it EQs on Heatran's Protect. Now, the question is, does Gary go to Fori on this obvious Lugia here? And if he does do that, and if he does get that matchup, does he go for Spin because he thinks Tomahawk might not have a Giratina O? He does go to Fori. Great move. He does get that Lugia. And he does go for the Rapid Spin. He said, I have to... it might have been, I don't think there's a ghost, and it also might have been a more desperation, I hope that there isn't one. Yeah, and now Garchomp comes into a Lava Plume, and avoids the burn, fortuitously and gets up Rocks. We don't see Rocks Garchomp very much. We'll switch perspective just to see that sprite. I don't know why the back sprite doesn't work. Yeah, now Lugia is going to be forced to rest with Rocks up, and now Fori's, off to the races, and now this game suddenly turned. And this is the second series that we've seen today where a spike-abusing team using Lugia didn't have a Ghost and got punished really, really hard by Fortress for it, so I think that should be a lesson. I mean, the Heatran's still a threat, as Tran switches in on the Fortress that came in after Lugia was forced to roost. And now it's going to Lava Plume, and Latias is switching into Lava Plume. So the Plume switch-ins on this team are just not there. Because, T-Tar, Chomp, Latias, Giratina, none of these are taking, and Dialga, obviously. Dialga pivots in, but it pivots into a Toxic as opposed to another Lava Plume. And it hopes that Heatran will switch out as opposed to protecting. Which is fair, I guess, if you're like, oh, this is going to be a sub bulk up set and my Heatran doesn't have Roar. Other than that, I don't know. I guess you don't want to protect and then have it sub bulk up and then have to go to Groudon. So no, it was a good move on Gary's end, because it's fairly riskless to go to Groudon there. So he gets the 1-up with Latias, but Heatran is still looking absolutely terrifying, because switching into it is just impossible. And he gets a Draco off, which with Rocks and Spikes does bring it down to half. But now Chomp is switching into Sunny Lava Plume, and this time it does eat the burn. That's going to be a free protect for Tomahawk. Even if Dialga does pivot in again, then it's still going to be getting more lefties at least. And it gets chased out, and there's a double to Latias on the Lugia. And now it's going to Calm Mind. It's got Calm Mind Draco, so that makes it even more threatening. And now Heatran's going to switch into the +1 Draco, or the +2. +3, is he going to get roared? Oh, it gets Toxicked. All right. And if this is Calm Mind Refresh Draco, that's really something. But he sacks, yeah, that was an interesting. I don't know why the extra Calm Minds, but the Latias is going to be at +1 since it got all the way to +3, so it's still a massive threat. And I guess he just assumed no Roar. But, I mean, hey, look, it's working out because he's getting another KO. Because with +3 special defense in conjunction with Soul Dew, then, yeah, he's not a threat at all. And the Toxic is not quite threatening. He hits the Sun Thunder, Lava Plume, racking up with poison damage. Toxic damage, rather. And Chomp comes in on Protect and manages to... So yeah, the Heatran is, I mean, an absolute nightmare, but Gary was really leveraging every little tool he could get out of it, and the fact that the hazard game flipped so thoroughly with the whole Fortress thing. So, I mean, still not an over game. It depends on the last, but it also depends on how well it can deal with Dialga. But Gary's team, I mean, look, T-Tar's basically dead, Giratina's basically dead, Latias basically dead, Fortress is not an offensive threat, so it's basically Dialga on Dialga. But, well, Groudon is also in... Yeah, but it gets burned, and it's going to be Dragon Claw. So unless this is bulk up Rest Talk, then, yeah, it's not. And Tomahawk forfeits, and that's going to be the series. Wow, I haven't made a 2-hour-plus video in a long time. So I'm going to go eat. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will catch you in the next one.